I want to talk to you. Can everybody please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hi, everybody. The microphone's on?
They're definitely on, yes.
Okay. So the agenda, I need to add onto the agenda establishing escrow accounts by resolution, making the planning board the lead agency for the Wildberry project. And George, I found the Cleaner Greener Community thing about getting the reimbursement for the electric vehicle charging stations, so I figured while you were here, I'd add this to the agenda so we could talk about that. Okay? So Cleaner Greener Communities, I'm going to add to the agenda. Does anybody have anything else they want to add? Okay, can I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. We'll do public comment right now. Please remember, if you're going to speak, that you need to come up to the microphone. You also need to talk directly into the microphone because it doesn't record to the people at home watching TV. So make sure you talk right into the microphone.
All set? Good evening. John Stern, I'm from the town of New Paltz, and
Dan Whitfield, also from the town.
we're here, and we're on the agenda for later, but
Right.
we don't know if that's going to be necessary or not. So I'm on the board of directors for the survival of the Shawangum. Dan here is the assistant director for the SOS for Kids race. And we're here tonight because we really never got a chance to thank the board for their cooperation last year putting on the Kids SOS, which took place at Moriello Pool and in some of the roads around town. We especially want to thank the pool director. He was tremendous and giving us a lot of help. So Bill, we really owe a debt of gratitude to. And we're here tonight because we'd like to see this continue for this year. We're going to be seeking approval from the board. And so, as you're pondering the question of whether or not to approve, we certainly want to know if there are any costs that might be incurred. We'd like to take care of that. Last year, a donation was made to the town for $150 to try to take care of some of the costs, the unexpected costs. We hope that took care of it. But we'd like to know going forward, because we really want this to be a community event. We're hoping to bring people together. We want this to be something that everybody on the board really buys into. We want this to be something that the folks at Moriello look on kindly. And so, we would very much like to work with you guys and know anything at all that you feel needs to be taken care of.
Good, thank you. Did you want to say something on this?
Yeah, just the race date is on Saturday, the 6th of September. It'll go from 8 to 10 a.m. We should be out of the pool area complex by a little after 9, by 9:15 at the latest. It's for kids 7 through 15. As you remember, you and Susan and Kevin were there last year and saw those happy, excited little faces.
It was great.
And everyone will go through the USA Triathlon Association. And the parade application, I think, was turned into Carol this week. That's it.
Okay. What we do have a lot on the agenda. We have our grants writer here. We have the attorney here. So we're going to try to figure out how we're going to move this. We have Carol here and Sue Stagen on this situation. But if you can stay, what we'll try to do is get you on very early. There's not going to be a problem with us approving it, but we do need to talk to you about going forward in the future. And so if you don't mind staying around a little bit, if you can.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to. We can talk to you about it later, but if you don't mind, we can try to move you up. Okay?
Sure.
Okay. Anybody else for public comment?
Is this like for something new?
If anything, basically, just talk into the microphone.
Hello, everybody. My name's Thomas Gallo. I live on South Ohio Road. All right, I brought up an issue. I called up the town meeting. I have beavers. Now, down South Ohio Road, there's a big swamp area. There's a beaver family that lives somewhere in that family. They grow up, they come over there. Now, I buy in my house as a underground water drain that goes under the road, through my property and across the thruway. Now, the beavers, they grow up, and there's a den that's 50 feet from the road, right next to the underground, the pipe. They grow up, they come to my den, they cross the road to see the water and get hit by a car. So last year I had 5 beavers killed by a car. Year before that I had 4, year before that 3. Now, I'm just asking for a sign. So I brought it up a couple of days ago, someone put a cone there. Just the cone there made me realize, hey, watch, slow down. So a sign, beaver sign, anything, because it's a guaranteed crossing. They see the water, it's flowing under the road, they want to cross the road. Hey, it's a road,
No, I
but
hear you.
I think it's beautiful. I go, I got beavers, and then it's dead in my yard. And it's big. It's not like a little beaver. I saw it crossing the road the other day, and it was like 100 pounds. And I slowed down, and I went back in the water. I haven't seen it since. I was like, good, it's not dead, it's fine. But I just would like to see anything. I mean, they're gonna go do whatever they're gonna do anyway, and what's gonna happen is gonna happen. If you do a little bit, it's something.
Well,
A cone on each side, a sign, and say, hey, there's beavers here, because there's beavers there. And that's all I ask.
we're on South.
I'm on 237 South Ohio Road, right next to, right across from the orchards and trailers, there's a couple trails over there.
Okay.
And I gotta ask this one, Chris, is there a beaver crossing sign?
No, I know
Well, we
that.
can make-
I know.
We could make one, we can have one made. What?
Whole day. I called the DEC, they pretty much said, we don't care. Call
No.
the highway department.
Well,
And I
actually,
was like, okay.
well, I'm actually really,
No, she said it's not our problem.
well, it is a problem when they decide to kill them. So I'm really glad you're here, not asking us to kill them, but to just put up a sign to protect them. So thank you.
It's been a couple of years, and I've had 3
Okay.
families wiped out. I'm like, oh my God, nobody sees these things.
Okay. Well, we'll try to figure out with our man about town who fixes everything, we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Okay, anybody else would like to speak? Just go on up.
Hi, Matt Logan.
I wonder if
Follow
you're,
Talk About Beavers.
are you related to anybody on the board by any chance?
Absolutely not. I don't blame him.
You're denying, are you
I don't
denying?
blame him one bit.
I love how he said that just like you too.
Would you like to come, we have an extra seat, would you like to come sit down with us?
Not
Good.
tonight, thanks.
Okay.
I've come out to the New Paltz Town Board meeting this evening to lend my support to the Mohonk Preserve's request that the board, as the host community, join with the Preserve in its grant application for monies to develop 1 or more trailheads on their newly acquired testimonial gateway lands. The Preserve has a long track record of developing new trailheads in ways that provide the necessary access to the protected lands while balancing that demand with sensitivity to capacity and responsibility in the interfaces between the trailheads and the public roads that come off of. To name just one example, the Preserve's West Traps trailhead off Route 4455 did a fantastic job of bringing to an end the makeshift parking situation that existed along that busy road from the hairpin turn up to the steel bridge for far too many years. I have no doubt that the Preserve will execute the development of the new testimonial gateway trailheads with similar thoughtfulness and excellence. The rehabilitation of the testimonial gateway as an entryway to the ridge has the potential to further improve the already wonderful relationship between the citizens of and visitors to the town and village of New Paltz, as the trailhead will be within ready walking, running, and biking distance from our Wallkill River Bridge. I urge our local governments to take advantage of this positive development to work with OSI and the Preserve to coordinate ways in which non-vehicular traffic can be encouraged between New Paltz and the gateway. I also urge the Preserve to consider making the area immediately around the gateway accessible for free, at least to non-vehicular visitors, so that it might become something of a quiet local community park. The town board should not hesitate to join with the Mohonk Preserve in seeking the available grant monies for a project that will only enhance and benefit our community at large. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I
Thank
enter
you.
this into?
Yeah, please.
Good evening. I'm Erwin Sperber. I'm on the executive committee of the Sierra Club's Mid-Hudson Group, but at this particular time, I'm speaking just for myself, just for identification purposes. I think you might want to know there are a lot of concerned folks in the Sierra Club and not in the Sierra Club who are much less receptive to the current plans of the Mohawk Preserve to do the construction on the gateway. In particular, many of us, including those in the citizens of the Shawangunk and some other groups with which we're working, do not see this as a restoration project or a preservation project in any way whatsoever. On the contrary, what we see it as is essentially a massive development project, and one that requires an extremely thorough examination. And unless and until all of the documents, all of the proposals are in their final form and available both to the town board and to the planning board, there should be no discussion whatsoever of endorsing any part of it, including the seeking of funds or grants in the way of expediting a project that may be pretty undeserving of support. Also, it's important to make note of the fact that there are hundreds of individuals who have expressed their profound misgivings about this proposal in the form of petitions and in the form of participation at meetings we have held. People who could not be here tonight because they did not know in any way that there was going to be any discussion about promoting support for the preserve at this time. And these individuals throughout the town individual need to have the opportunity to express their concerns as well. Last but not least, before any such proposal were going forward, I think it's necessary to recognize that the planning board was constituted on a basis of an independent appointed set of officials thereon for the purpose of giving them the opportunity to make their judgments without being pressured by other agencies or the New Paltz Town Board itself. And I think in the spirit of ensuring that there is independence and integrity on the part of the planning board in its deliberations, it would seem to me fairly straightforward to call upon the Town Board of New Paltz to refrain from any decision-making, any recommendations, any endorsements at this time. After all, we are a larger community concerned with promoting democracy, and there has not been anything like the robust debate and discussion on this whole venture. Again, last but not least, it's important that just because the preserve calls it preservation or restoration, that doesn't mean that's what it is. Most of us who've looked at it closely in the tentative forms that it already appears in have recognized it clearly as a massive development and one that may well benefit the Mohawk house, the Smiley Brothers Incorporated. Anyway, we would urge you to refrain from any decisions or endorsements at this time involving the historical gateway proposal. Thank you.
You kept saying "we" when you said you introduced yourself by saying you're speaking for an individual, but you keep using the term "we." I just want,
the
are you
we
speaking?
mostly includes the folks from the citizens of the Shawangunk.
Okay, are you representing a group then? You said you were
Oh, yeah.
representing yourself.
No, he wasn't
Well,
representing, he
I
said he
was
wasn't
for
representing.
Okay, that's fine. No, I just want to
Do
know.
you want to
You
have a
said-
fight?
No, it's
I don't want-
No, I
Guys,
just wanted
stop,
to, no,
stop.
I'm not having a fight. He
No.
said "we," and he said
No.
he started
No, I
by
know.
saying he represents himself,
No, I
but then
know.
he kept saying "we."
What I wanted to say was...
Just trying to find out who the "we"
No, I know,
was.
but I just wanted, for clarification purposes, he said he wasn't representing the Sierra Club.
Okay, I just want to make sure. You said "we," so that's fine. Okay.
Yeah. He said that he's a member of the Sierra Club, he wasn't representing the Sierra Club.
Oh, I'm in Gardner, but I've lived in New Paltz for the better part of 20 years. I work in SUNY New Paltz, and, you know, I feel very much as a concerned member of the community, even though I pay my taxes in Gardner. The post office says I live in New Paltz,
Yeah.
but I don't agree with the post
Yeah,
office.
yeah. Anyway, thank you, Ira. I just want one quick thing just for the record, just so everybody knows. The Mohonk grant was on the agenda for last Thursday. We tabled, and it was publicized on our agenda. We put it on our we put it on our town board site the Friday before the Thursday meeting, so it's out there almost like a week before. We tabled it at last meeting because we had so much on the agenda that we pushed it forward to this week, and it was back on the agenda on Friday, publicized. So it has been on the agenda for 2 weeks in a row. And if you check our agendas like Friday, you'll see that's a tentative agenda. Tuesday, we put up the permanent agenda, but it has been out there, so it's not like we just snuck this on. I just want that to be sure.
Judy, I very much appreciate and respect what you're saying. Suffice it to say that just 2 days ago, there was a rather large meeting that the citizens, the city of the Shangons held, and there was a substantial turnout of concerned folks there, including some members of the Mohonk Preserve, in fact, even including the former president of the Mohonk Preserve. Nobody said a word about this kind of resolution being on the agenda. I am convinced that if it was known to the people there, if it was announced in good faith, in a spirit of transparency, you would see this room packed to the gills.
Okay, but I just want you to know from the town board's perspective, we publicized it, and, you know, when you made it sound like that we just sort of all of a sudden snuck this on, and I just wanted you to be aware it's been on the agenda. Okay, I just wanted that for the record. Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Susan. Thanks for taking comments tonight. My name's Chris White. I'm a village resident. I've lived here for 15 years. I've been a Mohonk member for most of those years, and I'm sorry, Glenn, but I snuck in the preserve before that. I want to support Mohonk's application tonight, and I just want to remind you that what you're doing is not making a judgment on the final proposal. That has to go through the planning board. It also needs to go to the county planning board. What you're doing is a requisite for them to even just put their grant in. And you know, when Governor Cuomo formulated the consolidated funding application program, for a lot of these grants, you have to have a municipal resolution supporting the grant application. That's what you're talking about tonight. I want to say I'm also a member of the Sierra Club, and Mr. Sperber does not speak for me whatsoever. You know, a lot of us who join this Sierra Club, we're supporting the national goals, and the local activities here are very, very small, and you know, again, a lot of us who are in these organizations, no one voted on that. I also want to just talk about, you know, a massive development. When I think of a massive development, I think of something like, you know, the Awasting Reserve. And a lot of us in this room who are here tonight to talk about Mohonk fought that project because it was a massive project. What we're talking about is a development that restores a historic resource. It opens a gateway to Mohonk much closer to the village. And you know, we're working on the off-road trail that would connect to that. And it really is an opportunity for both the village and the town to have better access, to put it, you know, and I can't think of a better steward than Mohonk Preserve. I look forward to that project going forward. Whatever you think of the project, I think it's important that you at least allow them to go in a very competitive process for money. Because if New Paltz doesn't go for that money, other areas of the state will. I just want to end by talking about the issues raised with that. I think anything that comes up is going to have to go through the planning board, and I don't think you're swaying that at all. What you're simply doing is allowing them to put a grant application in. So I'd appreciate you supporting the Mohonk application, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
We'll get it eventually, Ira.
I do see your hand, Ira, so.
I'm Larry Baden-Dyke. I am with the Citizens, and I think of the Reed...
Can you just talk, just make
Oh,
the
I'm
microphone,
sorry.
yeah. Only just because, yeah, so people can hear you at home.
I'm Larry Badendijk, I'm with the Schwangum Citizens, and I think I'll just read a short statement from a letter we have drafted, again, in consultation with our lawyer. The Mohonk Preserve and open space must be held to the same standards as any other applicant appearing before the planning board, and indeed as required by the zoning law. Given that the Mohonk plan states that this is a type 1 action, these standards include a careful environmental review with a full environmental impact statement in view of the significant impact on traffic, the impact of building 152-car parking lots, and disturbing the natural habitat. There are other statements that go on. Now, it's hard to see how, if the town board is going to pass a resolution, that is not putting pressure, that it is not already prejudging something without having gone through the total examination of everything that's involved and the history that's involved, from including the travesty of the Brook Farm on. So we strongly request that you not take action on this. I don't think this should have been on the agenda. This is in fact moving forward their program. They're saying that. And if you look at the statement for the rationale, they are increasing access to the rail trail. The rail trail, working on the preserve, this was one of the rationales for it. This does not make any sense, and this is not the appropriate place to debate the pros and cons for this. Because I went to the other meeting, we have been checking the website, and I just heard about it tonight. So that word didn't get out very much. But if you're going to have a discussion of this, let's have it. And let's go into everything, including that fraudulent entity across the river that they are bringing in Glenwood Center. Anyway, we strongly hope that you will not vote on this. Leave this to the process to go through. Let us get the information. You are not yet informed enough, have not heard the debate on all the issues, to make a decision that would in any way facilitate the movement of this developmental process.
Thank you. Ira, do you want to come up?
Thank you. Hello.
It's on. I can see the. I can see.
hear myself.
Yeah, I can. It's hard to believe it's on, but the red light is on, so it's on, right, Chris? It's not working. Oh, it's not working? Okay, it's on, but it's not working. Should we, just for 1 second, do you need it for them to use one of the other microphones, or can you see if you can bring that microphone over to him?
If you want to come on.
You want to give me like 2 minutes? I'll hook your mic up there real quick.
No, it's okay, because I think we're, if Ira can just come sit down, he'll use this.
He says it's on, you can hear it.
Oh, you can?
It's on just low.
Uh-huh. It's just the people at home. I've had people.
I'm here anyway.
I've had people who at home tell me to make sure people speak into the microphone because they can't hear it. You know, that I'm always, so that's why I'm being.
Is that better?
Yes.
That's much better.
DJ.
And as I had mentioned last week, doing research into the subsidy by the town residents in the village. And in my continuing look at the subsidy of the village by the town residents, an interesting analysis seems to be popping up. There seems to be situations where the village residents receive more of the so-called share services than the town residents. In some cases, maybe more than an estimated 80%. This research has nothing to do with the tax-paying residents, but those who do not want to pay their fair share, or anything for that matter, because they feel they are better than everyone else and don't have to, even though they can. I am talking about the college, Woodland Pond, the businesses, as well as a lot of others. I include the businesses because I believe they are the only ones that benefit from the college, and they should contribute a lot more. But that would mean increasing their prices, and the college can't have that. If the town taxpayers think they are paying a lot now, wait until the college starts putting in their tax-exempt associate businesses. That's going to cause even more, in my opinion, families to lose their homes. I also believe it will cause the loss of established businesses as well as an increase in the subsidy to the village by those who are able to remain. In a conversation I had, it was mentioned to me that the fairest way to distribute costs would be a baseline service for the value of the cost, and anyone who wanted additional services would have to pay for it. My suggestion is even easier. Have a fund for town services with no subsidy for the village. Charge the village for any service they want from the town the way the village does the town. If they don't want to pay for it, they don't get it. Just to restate, these are groups and people who can afford to pay for the services but don't want to. In summing up, this is not a town versus village issue, but a town versus freeloader issue. No one is better or more deserving than anyone else, in spite of what they may think. Thank you.
Can I make
What?
Or
Go ahead.
someone else? Well, I just want to make a very quick statement because there was a discussion about proper notice of meetings. I just want to say, when I was on the school board, we did a middle school proposal. Some of you may recall that. And when we actually went to vote on that proposal, about 100 people showed up. We had 2 hours of public comment. And this year, when the school district went to do a similar proposal for $3 million more, about 10 people showed up for the discussion. And the reason why I note that is because we notice things properly. They're posted online. Whether people choose to pay attention to them and come is really outside of our purview. Our meetings are broadcast on television. We have multiple members of the press here as well. So although I understand the frustration with maybe not being aware of certain things that are on the agenda, I do take exception to the notion that they were not posted properly. So I just wanted to say that.
Would anybody else like to speak during public comment? Okay, Paul, I'll have him come, and then you can come. Okay. But if you, I guess at this point, if you want to just come here, because we really do need for the people at home watching to be able to hear.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
Can you ask people to say where they live?
sure.
Because, I mean, I think it's germane to the question.
Okay. I mean, obviously, if you have public comment, anybody's allowed to speak no matter where they live. However, if you could just say where you do live for the
Sure.
purposes of,
My name is Michael Fink. I live on the Clove Valley Road in the town of High Falls and Gardner. I'm a life member of the Mohawk Preserve, and I would like to make a suggestion. And I would suggest to this board to not grant anything this evening and take a look, see what happens on the 28th. There's going to be a lot of people there, and there's going to be a lot of comments. And what's the rush? Let's just see what happens and get some information that comes out. Let it proceed that way, and you can always come back and vote on it at the next meeting. But I think it would be a really good idea to, I could go into the reasons, but a lot of them have already been stated, and I won't get into the merits right now, but there's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes, and I think it should be looked at a little harder before it just is routinely passed, because there's a few people that think it's a good idea.
thank you. Paul?
I would just add to that, the 28th is the planning board meeting, for anyone wondering what he's discussing. Normally it would be held the Monday, but it's not being held Monday because it's a holiday. So it is the 28th. I just want to let anyone know, please, everyone come to the planning board meetings. I'm usually there with a couple people in the audience, and one of them just joined us at the table. So, Paul, you and I will be sitting there together. There will be no public input on the 28th. It's a presentation by an applicant. So if anyone's coming there planning on speaking, I don't want to burst your bubble, but it is part of the public process to have everyone in attendance and view the proceedings, but it is not a public input session, and that will not be changed. It's the way planning board meetings are run. So the 28th is simply a presentation by an applicant, no different than anyone else making application to the planning board. I could refer to one of our past chairmen who actually just joined us here, but it has never been the practice during part of the process until a public hearing is open that then public comments are accepted.
So then I would suggest that after the public comment period would be...
I was just simply trying to clarify what the meeting was on the 28th. Everyone's welcome to come. I encourage everyone to come that wants to. I will be there. Anyone that wants to come, please come, but it is not a public input meeting. I
But there
apologize,
is
Paul.
Jeff, there is a public input, but there are rules posted, I
Yes.
think 2 or 3 minutes. And
Yes.
I think what you're saying is the public hearing is where it'll be thrashed out.
Yes, thank you.
But I think I...
Public comment is open.
Right, but on the actual applicant, there is no discussion.
But you let people speak.
Yeah, no, I'm with that.
No, but I mean, the planning board meetings, there's public comment at the beginning, right?
Precisely.
So I think what Jeff is just trying to say, that this particular meeting is a special meeting for a presentation of the
No,
project,
this is just no, because the Monday meeting was canceled,
Oh, right,
not
right,
canceled,
okay.
but
Right, okay.
they move it because
Yeah,
of
okay.
the holiday.
Right.
So,
My name is
Something more
Paul.
about that, just to follow up, and I would suggest after the public comment period, they revisit this process.
Okay, well, when we get to it on the agenda, we'll explain why it's on the agenda for now and why we can or can't do that, but we'll get to that, okay?
sorry, Paul.
Go ahead.
Don't apologize, I'm sorry. My name is Paul Brown, I live reside in New Paltz. My question, or what I'd like to call to the board's attention, is that I believe the Zoning Board of Appeals is the only major land use planning and governmental committee that isn't videotaped and hoisted up on Channel 23 and then put on YouTube. I don't know why this is, but I would like to urge the board to look into it. I can see no reason why it is not. I understand that there's a budget. However, if it's the only board, and I suspect it is, in the village and the town, having to do with touching the lives of people, it really should be videotaped. And at the very least, I would urge you to make this happen by the next budget. I realize there are realities, but I think a quick look on your part will show that it should be videotaped.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for the suggestion. Would anybody like to speak? Come on up. It'll be game show. Come on up, come on up.
I feel bad having my back to the audience, but my name is Rebecca Armstrong. I live in Highland. First, I'd like to maybe clarify something about the meeting on the 28th, because I'm confused, and for the benefit of people who would be watching this on TV. There will or will not be an opportunity for public comment at that meeting?
There is always public comment we have the attorney sitting here, at planning board meetings. I believe
Okay.
I believe it is restricted to 2 or 3 minutes. Again, they're posted right up there on the wall.
Okay, so there will be an opportunity.
But again, it's nothing, you can, just like we have public comment tonight on any subject, the subjects tonight have ranged from beavers to TV to trees. So the same is
Right.
true with the planning board. You may make comments on
Okay.
anything, but there's no discussion, and then there'll be an application. There are several applications on that night.
Okay.
Technically, we shouldn't be in discussion either, but we do, because we just do.
We have no self-control.
I would just like to say that the proposed development of what's being branded as the foothills makes my heart sink. The stated goal is to leverage natural resources to attract jobs in key industrial sectors, which to me sounds like code for increasing property values and increasing the profits of the Smiley brothers. The other goal is to enhance responsible public recreational use of the foothills, which to me sounds like controlling public access so that admission can be charged in the way that it's charged for other areas of the Mohawk Preserve right now. To create a prominent point of entry to the foothills, this is somehow supposed to mitigate current traffic and parking issues. I can't imagine how it will mitigate them. It will only increase them. Route 299 is already a nightmare. It seems to me that this is all about providing a profit point of entry to the area. And they want to rejuvenate this supposedly neglected landscape. To me, I don't think it's neglected at all. I know many, many people who have not been neglecting it all along. And I think that it would be much better for all of us if they could somehow leave well enough alone. I'd just like to put those comments in the public record.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak during public comment?
My name is Richard Gottlieb, and I pay property taxes to New Paltz and school taxes to Highland, and I have 2 businesses in New Paltz, one of which I pay property taxes and the other is a rental. But hope to have 2 soon to pay more tax. I wouldn't have one.
That's the first time I've ever heard somebody say that. Pay more.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, that's good. I think you'd laugh.
Wow. Usually I try and it doesn't work. This time I didn't, and it worked. But I don't think I'd have one business if it wasn't for the Mohonk Preserve. And that shouldn't be a guideline for anything other than the fact that it's also a place that I spend a tremendous amount of time. And I love it. And I see not a lot of, well, Matt gave good input about people on their lunch hour that work in New Paltz being able to actually take a nice stroll there, you know, not just on the rail trail, but go to that place. It is very historic. The naysayers have been sending out very expensive, taking full-page ads, and you know, it started out pretty inflamed with words like Disneyfication and such, and I just don't see it. You know, the traffic is the traffic, and the traffic is caused by the thruway entrance. And I've said this before. It's caused by people needing to go to Poughkeepsie to work. It's caused by other communities on the other side of the ridge coming through, and then when the traffic gets bad, it's caused by other business interests, such as the county fair, the arts and crafts fair, the Taste of New Paltz, and then, of course, during peak leaf time, there's almost no place in the Northeast that's rural that's immune from that kind of traffic. The scope, the other thing is they keep talking about the scope of this, and it doesn't really, it seems very modest to me. I venture to say that when people make projections about what they want, they're usually negotiating. So I'm not talking for the preserve, of course, but I'm sure they could be whittled down a bit in terms of how many parking spots. But this seems to be a real resource. I often get back to this one point. Speaking of Disneyfication, when you live in Orlando or Anaheim, you might have access to the Disneylands, but how many times are you really going to go in your life? You know, maybe it lowers your taxes, but gives you all kinds of aggravation. Maybe it didn't even lower your taxes, it just gave you all kinds of aggravation. At least in an instance where we have these kind of entities, they're things that people that were born here and are now, you know, 80 years old have taken to heart and used these facilities or this land that was, you know, put into a private nature preserve, and you know, I think it's our great legacy. You know, the Huguenots are dead, the houses are nice, but we actually had a living legacy, and I think that's on the ridge and in the foothills, and I think it's something that we should encourage and relish. The beavers, I love you. I love you. You know, it made me think of the bicyclists, you know, share the road. These are majestic animals, and although there's been a lot of exaggeration about other things, maybe they do approximate 100 pounds. I've seen some pretty big ones. They're very amazing animals. But, you know, and saying that this is not, last thing, they've toned down some of the rhetoric in the handouts that I've seen from not friends, but the citizens of the Shawangunk, excuse me. And, but they still say this is not, that this is development, it's not preservation. But it's a very, they make it very dramatic, it's a heading, but it makes me wonder, well, what's Minnewaska, what's Grand Canyon? They all have buildings, some of them are historic. You go to Yellowstone, they preserve historic buildings that were park buildings. They preserve old ranches in some of these places in the Tetons. I mean, making a huge distinction between preservation and development seems to me to be just inflammatory because, it's all a matter of perspective and it's a matter of how things are handled and it's a matter of truth. So to put it into this, oh my God, it's not true.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
I don't know if I should put who I am and where I live. And
If you want to, you live on, you told us, South Ohio Road.
I didn't mention that.
Okay, if you'd like to come back and visit us.
Really quick.
You just want us to tell you how much we love you more.
Again, my name is.
We do love you, we do love you. Come here.
I do live in New Paltz. I pay taxes in New Paltz. My son goes to 4th grade at New Paltz, so I'm a resident and I'm a concerned person in the town of New Paltz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This public comment reminded me of why I love our town so much. Just wanted to say that.
Wait, no. Marty, if you can come up, then Larry, you can come back up, but I'm going to.
My name is Marty Irwin. I live at 57 Jansen Road in New Paltz. I'm also the chair of the Clean Water Open Space and Protection Commission, although I am not speaking here tonight in that capacity. I'm only speaking for myself. I do see that there's a plus for our rail trail, for the folks that go up to Minnewaska, and it brings folks to our community, which is economic development. And if that's the kind of development that you all are against, I have difficulty seeing why one would be against economic development. And most all studies say that the kinds of things that are being fostered by trailheads and rail trails are economic development as well as other things. Even though that's not necessarily why they're being done, they have that spin-off effect. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Larry, you want to come back up? And then, is there anybody else who wants to speak afterwards, or are we pretty much, I have some things I have to just read in the record, but.
What the citizens have been arguing for is that in this consideration, we do not do segmentation. And that means you have to consider what's happening on the 320 acres that's going to be run by the preserve, and that will be handed over to Glenwood Center. And we have, in fact, published a report on Glenwood, and that casts into doubt everything. People object to the term Disneyfication. It's not a term I use. I would prefer Norman Rockwell or Marie Antoinette and her little fake, pastoral outside Versailles. Because the fact is, what Glenwood Center is about recycling massive amounts of money. It has nothing to do with agriculture. And you can tell this if you look at the 990, which we analyzed. Glenwood's income yearly is $3 million, plus several hundred thousand. That several $100,000 is all that comes from their agriculture and their CSA. The agriculture that Glenwood proposes is, in fact, a come-on to bring in donors. That $3 million that they earned comes from donors and returns on the $19 million bank account that they have. Agriculture is not. Yes, Glenwood Center is indulged in business, green money. We don't know exactly what they were doing, but there's a good chance that what they want to do is to clone Glenwood Center in a much more desirable place on the 320 acres, which is why they had to destroy the Brook Farm project. It's about money.
and they bragged about bringing $3.5 billion to spend on that. And the president bragged at the public meeting, the first public meeting, about the wonderful job they did at Glenwood Center, and they were going to do the same. And what does that mean? You take the barns, and anyone, we have farmers here, what happens to barns is the rocks go on, the foundation goes, it creaks. Okay, so what did they do at Glenwood? Everything's squared out, everything's leveled. It's perfect for one of their main businesses, which is a photography exhibit opportunity. And the other thing is they make money from events. But the $300 million doesn't come from that. In fact, if you look closely at it, their CSA is not sustainable. It is, in fact, supported by donations and other money from it. It is a sham. I talked to one knowledgeable person who says it looks like money laundering. We didn't use that, but that's the term that comes automatically, and we have to censor it because I don't think it's illegal. But as an agricultural entity, and they are bringing this in, and they destroyed Brook Farm supposedly to encourage agriculture. So Disneyfication refers then, okay, to what Glenwood Center did, what they talked about, and what they're going to do here, which is it has no relation to actual farming. And this is the problem, and I think what the town has to look at, and the citizens look closely at the total picture, the money involved, what's going on there. Glenwood depends upon donors. That donors' money goes into investment, and that's where they make it, and they are probably going to see a greater opportunity here because this is with the Gatehouse, with the preserve, with the Mountain House. This could very well be their next headquarters. And when you're going to look at traffic, you have to look closely and examine very closely what Glenwood is. It is, the title of the report we put out is Glenwood, the Great Pretender. It's a pretend agricultural thing, and no one I have spoke to, including people who are pro-business, has been able to say how that incubator form will work. No one has been able to show how one single citizen, except Cal Ruger, who's been living up there for years, is now employed by it. That one single New Paltz citizen is going to gain from this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I
okay.
quick suggestion? We have public comment at the end of the meeting as well, and I do apologize, Ira, and I know you commented twice, and I do think from here on out what we should be doing is if you want to make an additional comment, we have that period at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, but okay, I didn't, I was very careful the first time I got up to limit myself, and there were charges made, and I felt I had to.
Well, but that's not what this forum is, unfortunately.
I don't think we should be.
Is it okay?
And I understand that, but that's not what the forum is.
What I'm going to do, at this point, because we have a lot on the agenda. We have the lawyer who's here. We have guests, many guests that are in the room tonight, and so everybody's waiting for some other things. But I do have two letters that I have to read into the record. A third letter by Chris Ehrlich was, he called around 5 o'clock from what I was told, and he had a letter he was going to send me, but it hasn't gotten here yet. So if and when I get the letter from Chris, I will hand it into Rosanna, but I just want to know that there is a letter from Chris Ehrlich. I just haven't gotten it. This letter, Dear Supervisors and members of the town board, I'm sorry I can't be there in person to ask for your support of the Mohonk Preserve's application for a state CFA grant toward the capital cost of trailhead installation. 23 years ago, as Vice President of the Walker Valley Land Trust, I was proud to sign a contract with Conrail to purchase 12 miles of abandoned railroad. We were able to do this because after 2 years of meeting and public hearings, the town and village of New Paltz recognized the value of creating a linear park, now known as our beloved Walker Valley Rail Trail. Incredible as it seems today, there was serious, well-funded opposition to the rail trail. But our community leaders had the vision to see the environmental, economic, and community-building benefits of this project, and it was recently designated as a National Recreation Trail by the National Park Service and the U.S. Department of Interior. I offer this bit of history because tonight you have the opportunity to help a project that literally symbolizes the historic legacy of our town. What could be more iconic than the Mohonk Testimonial Gateway? What could be more precious than the breathtaking vistas of the Shangang foothills? What could be more important in this perilous time of climate change than a nature preserve that provides jobs to educators about nature's delicate balance? Please continue the good and responsible work of the New Paltz Town Board and support the Mohonk Preserve CFA application. Sincerely, Kitty Brown. And then I have another letter I was asked to read into the record. Hi, Susan. I want to voice my support as a private citizen of New Paltz for the town to officially endorse the Mohonk Preserve pursuing funding for its Foothills initiative. As you know, the way the state has its grants program set up, there is only one window each year to apply for a CFA grant, and the deadline is June 16th. This would not be an endorsement or approval of the project itself. That is the purview of the planning board, as you know. Mohawk is only asking them to open the door to apply for a state grant. You would be giving the preserve a competitive opportunity to try to win a state grant to invest in a project that I believe will enhance New Paltz. I'm sure that there will be people in the audience tonight who will urge you to decline to endorse Mohawk's grant application because they are opposed to the project. Please take the high road and enable the preserve to apply for a state grant. The planning board and Mohawk will sort out the concerns about the project through their normal public process. Thank you for considering this, Seth McKee. Okay, so with that, we will get into the meeting. Oh, is there any announcements? Anybody have any announcements? Crafts Fair this Monday?
Oh, we're closed Monday. Traffic.
Well, we're closed Monday. Town Hall's closed Monday. Jeff, anything?
One is, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, we are flushing hydrants. We're flushing hydrants tonight, and they'll be flushing them until the early morning hours. So if you wake up and have slightly turbid water, give it a little bit of a chance, and it should clear before the day is out. If it continues into the following day, please feel free to give us a call. I thought we had one other thing.
Yeah, well, I think we should do another announcement.
I think I got one for you.
Go ahead.
The third annual Zero Waste Day, which will be held on Saturday, June 14th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the New Paltz Reuse and Recycling Center. Be there or be square.
Okay. Why we have Chris do all...
Yeah, and the other one is actually, Chris, do you want to join us?
Chris, why don't you come up? We just need to do an update on opening of Moriello Pool. And so
I know it's not your favorite subject, Chris, but...
First, we just have to say, before Chris does the update, that Chris has been working round the clock with his crew, morning, noon, and night, to try to get the pool open in time for Memorial Day. And he has been doing a yeoman's job, and it's just amazing all the hours that he works and whatever. But unfortunately, a glitch happened, and we'll let Chris sort of update us all where we're at.
We lost a bearing in the new pump on startup. Currently talking to the manufacturer, the people who put in the pump, and a pool pump place up in Kingston on rectifying the problem. As soon as I know I can take it out without voiding the warranty, I will take it apart, I will bring it up to them, they'll replace the bearing, I'll bring it back, and we'll fire it up. I have no timetable for this. I have to wait to make sure that I'm not going to void the warranty by digging into it. I have 3 companies working on it, and we're just waiting to hear back. My last conversation was at 5:30 this evening with the last company. So we're trying. Good luck.
So basically, the pool was supposed to be open this weekend, but it's not opening.
Correct.
And so the pool will not be opened. We'll constantly post updates on the website to let people know where we're at and where we think things are going, but we just have no clue right now. If we get a sense that it's going to be a long time, we'll try to see what we can do to work out with the county to do something to help the New Paltz residents who belong to Moriello Pool to be able to use the county pool. Last year and the year before, I think, when Rosendale couldn't open their pool, we worked with the town of Rosendale to assure their people being able to come to use our pool. So hopefully we'll be able to get a reciprocal relationship with some other pool if we can't open the pool for a while. So we'll keep you posted, keep checking back, and everybody really owes a debt of gratitude to Chris because he's working just seriously beyond round the clock.
Next weekend, so I don't know. It's up to the manufacturer right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's better because she told me it was going to be closed for a month, so next weekend is a lot better.
Yeah, well, that was 6 hours with hands of you don't want to know what in that pump to try and get it to work.
Thank you, Chris. And so everyone knows, though, the county pool doesn't open until the second week of June. So we always have traditionally opened a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the county pool, but they open on June 14th. But we anticipate, according to Chris, to be open before then.
Okay. So I guess we'll get going now. Is Victor...
Now, did you see it get an email?
What?
By any chance, there was a letter that came by email.
From Chris?
Yes.
He was supposed to send it to me. I checked before I came out, and I hadn't gotten it.
Maybe
So it might be there now, but I'm not going up to get it right this second. But I do know he was sending me one. I just didn't get it. So that's why I'm saying that I'll give it to Rosanna tomorrow, and
We'll put it in the formal record.
Yeah, we'll put it into the formal record. Okay, so what I'd like to do is bring Victor Cornelius, who's our grants writer, up to do a little bit of an update for us on all the money that's out there that we hope to get.
Well, and our application process on what we've already put out. The FEMA request, the many that we have out. I just checked the website. The website's still open.
Well, can you do me a favor? Can you stop and maybe explain the projects that we applied for? So then you give the update that people.
I didn't do the grant writing for all of them. The primary one I worked on was the Sewer 6 issue, which was $3.6 million. The FEMA request would fund 75% of that. We'd be looking to the HUD disaster relief funding, which is coming down shortly, to make up the additional 25% of that. The website does indicate that the state has moved that to FEMA review at this point. It does not indicate whether or not they have funded it at this point. The governor's office has announced the first 10 award announcements about a month ago, and it's my understanding that they will be spilling them out in the course of the summer, and I would assume that all award announcements will be made prior to the second Tuesday in November. So I think that's a fair assumption. Yeah, I think
Election day is always
a fair assumption.
Okay.
So I'm continuing to monitor it, and we'll see how it progresses. We have
also the water loop line.
The water loop line is in there as well.
It's also in there too, which was it's a water connection. Henry Du Bois to get more water down to the high school and create a better loop. And
and essentially, water looping is an important thing for municipalities these days, because what it does is, if you connect two ends of an extended water line, you're essentially providing, in case of a break, the community with two separate water sources, a backup water source.
And so those are the two grants that you're going to give us an update on right now, in terms of where they're at. Like you said, both of those are in the FEMA review right now.
Those are the FEMA review right now.
But they also went through a very extensive process, so being in the FEMA review is good news.
Yeah, it's good news. They've indicated, the website indicates that over $2.6 million is eligible for FEMA funding at this point, which is part of the 75% that we're looking at pulling down. So. The next piece of the equation is we have a transportation alternatives program request that went out in the early part of this month for the bike path on Henry Du Bois, and that's actually being reviewed by Region 8 of the DOT. Now, the final application deadline is June 11th, and they will be back to us. The region will be back to us with any changes or additions to that.
Now, one of the things that we were told by Tom Weiner from DOT, when Dan and I were at the ribbon cutting for the enclosed bike shelter, that putting it in, this is the first time they've done a process where you could put it in early and they review it and come back to you with recommendations.
Right.
And they sort of said that they were really happy that we made it in time for that, and they said that that would help to give a little bit of a leg up on some of these grants, because they're going to tell us what they want us to do to make the grant better.
Exactly, and so I'm watching my email on that, and I'll ask you to watch yours.
Right. And we're getting this grant, Chris, sorry. But we wrote a letter of recommendation.
We traded letters. So
we traded letters.
Win either way.
Yes, we win both ways, and hopefully we'll get both.
So now we're engaging the consolidated funding application process for the town. We've just had a meeting where we have slightly shifted gears, I think, and have come up with...
well, we haven't shifted gears, we just shifted location.
Yeah, well, maybe I should let you describe it then.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, essentially, we're looking at funding a emergency services center, which will encapsulate the fire department, the EMS people, and the police department on North Putt, conceivably on North Putt and Henry Du Bois. At a site that's currently owned by the fire department, utilizing illustrations and plans that they'd already developed, I believe about 10 years ago. We're going to run out and do new estimates because it'll make it look like a shovel-ready project. You all may, or a number of you may be familiar with the fact that the governor moved this CFA process up and sort of gave us a truncated 5-week period in which to come up with these grants. I think, again, he wants to make the award announcements the first week of November. I think he's feeling some heat. At the end of the day, we have that on the table. We've got the illustrations for it. We basically have to do an updated budget.
So just as a quick update, I mean, as you know, we were at one point looking at where the police department is right now and trying to put everything there. We had a meeting, because we were told to possibly do a CFA grant to get more money to help build this facility. I had called a meeting right before this meeting with police, the fire, and the rescue with Victor and with Julie Robbins, who's representing our region for New York Rising. And what was brought to us was plans done 10 years ago by the fire department to do a consolidated fire police facility on North Putt. It seems like the access for the fire trucks and all the emergency vehicles to get out of that site, because you have Henry Du Bois and you have North Putt, is much easier for them to get out with these big gigantic trucks, where South Putt's not as easy. And because they had these amazing plans, it sort of seemed like almost more shovel-ready in a sense. And so what we're going to do is tomorrow we're going to call the architect out of Poughkeepsie who did the plans, try to see what, they left the plans in my office, so when Dave comes later, he can take a quick look and maybe give us some ideas of what it would cost to update the plans. And we're going to call the architect tomorrow to see if we can get the plans on disc, and then also see what it would be for them to do a little bit more of an updated budget for us. But we could use the plans, which are more than you actually need for the grant.
Absolutely.
And we can get an exact budget, and then we could probably put it in. And so between the HUD money
And the community development.
and the community development money and maybe New York Rising money, we're hoping to put...
The CFA.
And the CFA to put together
This is we're guesstimating it to be somewhere between 5.8 and 7 million, and we're looking to grant fund it. It's got a good shot because we're calling it an emergency services center. There is actually enough space in the illustrated renderings for the building to house people on a temporary overnight basis, should that be required. So I think that gets some solid review and some generation of serious dollars for this community.
And then the CFA grant that is due June 16th, there is a park portion of it.
That's correct.
And we had originally talked, before we talked about the EOC going for that money, and we still don't know if the EOC can go for CFA money, but we know it can go for other money, so, we're just pursuing everything. But with the CFA grant, there is money for recreation.
Right.
So we had a conversation about, there's a real desire for soccer fields, it's been talked about for a long time, out at the Field of Dreams, and some handicap accessibility for access at the Field of Dreams. I do know that at one point Dave had met with everybody, so when Dave comes later too, we'll check to see how much he has in place, and if we have enough ready already from all the work that's been done, we might put in for a CFA grant for the soccer fields. And so if we
And I'll
find...
be in touch with him first thing tomorrow morning. He's actually calling me about that other water project.
Okay, good. So if at any point we think we're definitely going to go forward, we might just have to have a special meeting to do a resolution for the CFA grant, and so...
Prior to June 16th.
Because our next meeting is...
Captain.
So we'll just keep our fingers crossed that
And what's nice
before
about
November 3rd, we're here.
What I think is really nice about it is there are a lot of very positive plans being generated and very clear cut and specific. So I think it's a really good process.
And just as a real quick wrap-up, when we were just in the meeting with all the emergency services, what was said to us was that during Hurricane Irene, because you have the firehouse down at Village Hall, you have the police here, you have the rescue squad here, that during the emergency, it was very difficult for all of the emergency responders to get together, and so the fire department had to leave the firehouse to get to a meeting to talk to the rescue squad and the police department, and it was really cumbersome during the emergency to provide the services. So all of the emergency providers feel that if they can come together in one site, that when there is an emergency...
And the other advantage to it is that we would move to install solar at this site, which could be taken off the grid and power that facility in case of a collapse of electricity from the grid.
So that's what we're working on. So when I get a sense of what it might, be for us to get some of this stuff, I might need to call a special meeting to allocate some money, or we'll figure this out. Okay,
Right.
thank you, Victor, for coming over.
Thanks, Victor. Right.
Thank you, Victor.
Okay, so just trying to figure out who's here and what we need to do. We'll have the cemetery board come up real quick, because I know... Oh, you all can come up. There's all these nice chairs that cost us $10 because of Laura's great work. Aren't these beautiful? $10 a chair.
Very impressed.
I know. We found out that after we got these chairs, that people used to come early on the planning boards and other boards to make sure they can get one of the cleaner chairs.
Clean ones. Patty's a member also.
Hi, Patty, yes.
Patty, you can pull up one of the older chairs, sorry.
You go, Carol. Yeah, why don't you here? Turn that, Carol, turn that around and we'll share this.
Here's a mic.
If you need to talk, and we'll share this. Okay.
Sue is going to speak for us.
Okay.
As treasurer, I just want to let you know New Paltz Rural Cemetery has a relationship with the town. We are located on 81 Plains Road. In May of 2010, there was a change in state law. I'm going to read this and then give you copies. The people of the state of New York, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, the general municipal law, this is New York State, is amended by adding a new section, 165A, to read as follows. Voluntary municipal assistance to public cemetery corporations. Any municipal corporation may appropriate and provide funding to the public cemetery corporation as defined in Article 15 of the Not-for-Profit Corporation Law. In lieu of or in addition to providing funding to a public cemetery corporation, any municipal corporation may provide goods and/or services to a public cemetery corporation as defined in Article 15 of the Not-for-Profit Law. So I just wanted you all to have a copy of this. I don't know, we start with Roseanne. I became treasurer in 2012, and when I read this in one of the state magazines, I realized I'm not asking for money, but I want your recognition that a municipality can help the cemetery. A year ago, Carol Roper and I met with Chris Marks and the supervisor, Sue Zimick. We do not have any trucks that are roadworthy. We don't have licensed trucks. The vehicles we use on the cemetery aren't licensed to go on a road, a public road. So there are times when we're clearing brush, we're doing things like that. We can't get that to the recycling center to take brush and just general debris. So we worked with Chris Marks last summer, and he was able to help us. What I would like to do is make a formal announcement that you understand as a board. I don't want someone to go by and see a town truck at the cemetery and say, why is that happening? I want you to understand this is legal. We are not asking for money. We just want, and Chris has been wonderful. Of course, this has been the winter, beyond winters, and he's can occasionally help us with snow plowing also. But we just want you to understand that this is a formal law. This has been approved. It's been on the books for 4 years. We've never really made a formal presentation to you, but we just want to make you understand that you can do it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And if you're making any money and you do want to give us some money, not now. And at this point, we do have a very good, financially we're stabilized, so we don't have problems. But it's nice to have a rapport with the town. Yeah. And our new superintendent, John LaCour, has a good relationship with Chris. If we need something, we're able to call him up. But I think it's always better to be above and make sure that you are aware. I mean, Sue Zimick, we talked with you, Chris Marks, but I want everyone to be aware of that.
And just as a quick, Jeff and I did have a conversation with Joe Moriello today about a couple of issues. So we did bring this up, and he was doing some research. I don't think he saw this law, so I'll have to give this to him tomorrow, because he did have a little bit of concern that he didn't think we could actually do stuff. But, you know,
that's the general feeling, and
yeah.
I've been told that you can't.
Yeah, so actually having this is really good. And
We
then,
apologize, we're 4 years behind on this. If we
I
had
know.
known this, if I'd known about 165-A 4 years ago,
we would have had you plow.
absolutely. So, I think just a couple quick meetings with Joe and a letter and with the board, and we are, I see no reason why not. So, I mean,
And we have no intention of, overdoing it or anything like that.
Yeah. No, and we know. And so when we did talk to Joe, he was looking at some controllers things, and he was a little despondent. He said that and he didn't think you guys would be happy. but we'll get this to Joe first thing tomorrow, and then we might just at some point, maybe just want to have like some resolution or something, so therefore, at least from insurance purposes, so if the truck is on your property and something happens, that there's sort of no problems, and, everything is just, we just all sort of know where things stand, and so, we will talk with Joe tomorrow based on what you gave us, and then we just might ask you another time to come back, or we'll just work things out and do what we have to do.
Sure.
But,
And as
obviously-
treasurer, I've been the one that has been reading this, and I realize I think we just have to make this relationship formal, so that we all understand.
And I do think while we're talking about the cemetery, we might want to make an announcement that it's my understanding that the county executive, without much fanfare, his office actually, when we did the veterans cemetery, that they pay for the opening and the closing of the grave, and the families are supposed to pay for the interment. And I think, as I understand it, I think the county very quietly took over paying for the interment at this point. And so now the veterans' families are basically not paying for it.
It's just the veteran, it's not the
Just,
spouse.
right, but the veterans' families do not have to pay for the interment of the veteran because the county picked it up, they're now paying for it. But they just didn't make a big production about it, and so I wanted, since you're here, I thought I would bring that forward and thank the executive's office for doing this, because the Veterans
We
Cemetery
could also give a plug, we're going to have a memorial service on Memorial Day in the morning.
10 o'clock, very
Right.
brief, but we
10
feel it's
o'clock.
appropriate to do something.
Absolutely. And I've noticed, because when I was out at the cemetery the other day for the middle school kids, when we went over to the Veterans Cemetery, I went over with you, so we were looking at, there's like, what, about 100 veterans buried there at this point?
Yeah.
I think close to 100 veterans.
In what, 6 years?
In 6 years.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really pretty
Most people
remarkable.
don't remember, of course, because of how many years ago it was, but we started in
Can you use them up?
1861, coinciding with the Civil War.
Yeah.
The
So
cemetery?
this truly is a veteran cemetery.
Well, actually, it was funny, when I was out at the park by the, where the monument is,
Civil War monument.
that's the first time I saw such incredibly old stones. I didn't realize, how historic that cemetery was until I was out at that end, because I don't really get past the beginning where the Veterans Cemetery is and the
And
other
actually,
cemetery.
since you just appointed Carol Johnson and Susan Stetson-Cohen, they probably know more about the cemetery than we do. And you'll probably be here, we're hoping to have some more public programs, and it's a wonderful, I know it's a sad place, but we have some wonderful history there, and it really is a beautiful site.
Yeah. And then something also just got paid for, I think, not the flagpole. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a flagpole that Chris Marks and the guys paid for the monument that we're
That's out
dedicating
on
June
Ohioville.
1st, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting.
Thank you for everything you do.
It's all right.
Okay, so now this is good. Sure. Why don't we bring up SOS real quick also?
I love this rotating meeting thing going on here.
We don't have to get lonely
Hey,
and
gentlemen,
talk to
just real quick,
ourselves.
we'll get you out of here.
Hello?
Hi, guys. Okay. So we have a request to authorize the SOS for Kids Triathlon, and I don't think it takes any police. I don't think it takes any,
If it does, I see there's a little notation there that we don't have to worry about the expense.
Right. Well, we have Officer Lucchese, who volunteered last year, and he has already agreed to do that this year.
okay. So why don't we just take care of this, and then we can just talk about the future for a quick second.
So I move that we approve the
Can you talk into the microphone?
Oh, sorry. Go away.
I move that we approve the application of the SOS Kids for the event that's going to occur on September 6, 2014. It was a great event last year, and I'm sure it's going to be great again this year.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? And I will second that it was a great event, and it was a privilege to be there. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. The only reason I asked you to stay was just to talk about the future, because Bill just was a little concerned that we know that you try to do it when you do the adult SOS, and because you do it like the week after Labor Day.
Right.
Okay, so we're keeping the pool open because we usually close Labor Day, but we're going to keep the pool open for you. His only concern is going forward in the future that I think next year, I think he said Labor Day is like 2 weeks later or something, or whatever, when Labor Day is, and then when if you were going to be doing your event like a week after, you're going into like the third week of September, and then, so depending on those kind of dates, that sometimes it's going to be really difficult because the third week of September, the kids are back in school, you know, nobody's really around, he's back teaching. And so it's just that, you know, going forward after next year, if we could sit and talk early, you know, to try to figure it out before you actually schedule it, so we can make sure we can figure out how to accommodate your needs plus the ability for the pool, you know, because we are keeping it open and whatever. So it's just that another year is doing it a little bit earlier so we can figure out how to move forward if the dates don't coincide with the pool's ability to stay open, what we're going to do. So I just wanted to just...
And I think this year they might be, staying open a little later, just because school isn't starting.
No, what happened was last year, we always close the pool, but last year when we found out that the school, camps ended, but the school was taking 3 teacher conference days.
School didn't open till
So the
Friday.
school didn't open till that Friday, so we chose to keep the pool open so the kids who were home with nothing to do could use it, and it also worked into the fact that that weekend you had your event. And so it all sort of worked out because we were keeping it open for you, so then we said, oh, well, we might as well keep it open for the kids because they're done with camp. And so in the future, we still could try to work things out. It's just that Bill expressed concern down the road when Labor Day is much later and the pool closes earlier. So just...
And this year's just tough because school's starting that Wednesday.
Right.
And we were hoping it didn't start that Wednesday, and then we would just keep it open that whole week. But they actually have, I think, teachers report a day earlier. Are you
rubbing it in?
I think.
I'm a teacher.
Yes, we know. Many of our kids had you.
You'll be where Dan is someday. I mean, retired
Yeah, that's what he
district.
keeps telling me.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and again, if we can help you also though out, let us know. I know in the past when it was at the college, it was nice to hold the event at the track, but last year was the first year it started to get more community-like.
Yeah.
So maybe if there's more events down there, because we have the park, we have the playground, you know, maybe if the post-event is there too, because we're going to be there regardless.
Right.
And make it into a full day
Sure.
there.
Well, we'd love to work with you guys to do that.
So let's keep talking as the summer goes through and as the plans come together more, and maybe we can get a little bit more out of that day. And again, hopefully it'll be a beautiful weather weekend and see what
See you there.
happens.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
we'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, great. So now we have Stacy who's here for the rental, and we have the Mohawk Preserve people. So we'll just pay Stacy a little bit more overtime, and we'll do the Mohawk Testimonial Gateway first. Is that okay, Stacy? She's on overtime.
She didn't say no.
George is here, so when I
Well, George has got to be...
when I start going like this, he can answer.
Okay, well, the problem is George is here for a number of things going for you. He's here for your rental law. He's here for the maybe the annexation thing. He's here for Park Point IDA legal discussion. He's here.
Nothing big on the agenda.
Okay, so why don't we do Mohawk Preserve next? And you want to do a little background? Do you want me to do the background, Jeff?
Do you want to read it? Do you want me to read it, or do you
Okay.
want to?
Why don't I give this to all of you? I'm going to have Jeff read it, but I just want to do a little bit of a preamble before, because some of the concerns that were brought up tonight by a lot of the people speaking are legitimate concerns from the perspective that this project is in front of the planning board and it has to go through an entire SEQA process and it has to go through an entire vetting process. And we know that and we understand that. So when we got the first resolution that just basically said we were sort of supporting the project for the purposes of the grant, we had a little bit of an issue of the fact that how could we support the grant without really having the project go through the process, because it looked like implicit endorsement of the project. And so we went back and did a lot of research back to 2012 when we did the very first grant and had a 2-hour extensive conversation with people who felt the same way they feel tonight. And also Councilman Barry had a lot of questions, so we had about 2 hours of public input and about an hour discussion on the board. And we created a resolution that, with the understanding that we were supporting the ability for Mohawk Preserve to apply for a grant, but the grant was an implicit endorsement because there's a process. And so we changed the original resolution that was posted online that was just, they're going for a grant, they need our support, we support it, and it's a much more extensive resolution that takes into account all the concerns that were expressed tonight. Just to reiterate what was said tonight, The reason why we're being asked to discuss this tonight, why we have to do this tonight, and we can't put it off until the presentation to the planning board, is because the CFA grant is due on the 16th, and we don't have another board meeting until afterwards. And in order for them to potentially get the money, but they will not get awarded the money if they end up not making it through the planning board process, they have to have a grant, they have to have a resolution from the home community. And so that is why it's before us tonight. That's why we can't wait or put it off, and it is on the agenda for tonight. So with that preamble, I'll just let Councilman Logan take it from here.
And again, this comes after discussion with, I think Susan and I are actually not allowed to talk to any more attorneys tonight. We've spoken to more than our share of them, not including you, Kevin, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, we do like you. And again, our concerns were, and over the time of developing this, our concerns were also that the town board would be dictating to a board that we have approved the project, and it is not us approving the project. Everyone keeps hearing CFA, and so everyone knows it's a consolidated funding application, and someone break in if I'm incorrect on this. Basically, what you're doing is making one application, and it goes to multiple sources. Is that a good description of a CFA?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why you keep hearing CFA tonight, so what it is we are then required to do a CFA with them as the host community. They won't accept the application without it. Is that also correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I actually listened to all the attorneys today. We spoke to look at that. It worked. So what it is what we have come up with, and I will read the resolution. Whereas the Mohawk Preserve, Inc. proposes to submit a consolidated funding application to the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, OPRHP, Parks Program, for a grant under the Environmental Protection Fund and to the Green Infrastructure Grant Program of the Environmental Facilities Corporation. And the CFA application, if granted, will provide funding for a proposed trailhead project located in the Butterville Canyon foothills, also known as Mohawk Preserve foothills of the Shawangunk Ridge, a site located in the territorial jurisdiction of the town of New Paltz, New York. Whereas, as a requirement under the rules of these programs, said non-for-profit corporation must obtain the support of the governing body of the municipality in which the project will be located. So again, that is a very key sentence there. So we are simply just making an application to say that we will back the funding should it get approved. Whereas the town of New Paltz supports the preservation of open space and has identified these lands as a top priority for the protection of the town. Whereas the town supports the Town Historic Preservation Commission's goal of having a plan for the conservation and preservation of key historic resources, building on heritage and cultural resources of the town, and Mohawk Preserve has worked with the commission to support the designation of the Testimonial Gateway and its surrounding landscape as a local historic landmark.
Who drafted this language, Secretary?
Our attorney,
Which one?
the one at the other end of the table.
The one he doesn't like.
I like all
You
attorneys.
spent a lot of time on this, George.
Well, actually,
Yes.
let me preface it, Kevin. Actually, we did, back in 2012, when we did the very first grant, when we spoke for 3 hours, if you remember, we had a very simple resolution, and we didn't do it after a 3-hour conversation. And we pretty much drafted most of this language back then in 2012, and a lot of that was the basis for using this. And the only thing that was done was a couple of updates relative to what's transpired between then. So George didn't actually spend a lot of time on this. He just took what we did back in 2012, updated it.
I'll look at that timesheet.
So go ahead.
I will preface it with that I think George did work hard on it because I know he didn't make it home between the time we spoke to him several times today and coming directly to our meeting. Also of importance of the 2012 one that we did sign on with, I'm surprised Susan didn't say it, that has resulted in us now that was a grant for getting greater access out to the foothills across the flats, and that is now a grant that we are getting for studying putting a walkway, bikeway across the flats out to it. So the 2012 grant actually was successful.
Well, actually, what I'll phrase, because
Yes,
it has to do with you, Kev. When we had that, when we talked about the grant the first time back in 2012, you had asked if there were other things we could work with them on to benefit the community. Then we set up that meeting with you and with Mohonk Preserve, and out of that came the desire to do more bike paths and to do a bike path out by the Flats Trail. And from that work, we ended up working with Mohonk Preserve to actually go for a Greenway grant, of which we ended up getting a $40,000 Greenway grant, which resulted from the first grant request from them, your request to do some more work, and the Bike Flats Trail project, which is having a public meeting, I think, in a week or two. Yes. It came out of the work that we did from that first grant, so you were up to here, I think.
Okay, yep, to the next whereas. Whereas the town board is aware that this project has been submitted to the planning board for State Environmental Quality Review Act review and land use approvals, that a SEQRA lead agency will be established for coordinated environmental review of the project, and that further review by the town will be conducted in regards to the proposed improvements, which will consider and evaluate the specific components of the project and the potential impacts that could result, both with respect to the environmental resources of the lands to be acquired by the preserve and the surrounding lands that could be affected by the proposed project. Whereas there will be public participation throughout that process, including a public hearing on the proposed subdivision. Whereas the town board is aware that the CFA funding cycle requires submission of the application before that CEQA process has concluded, that a complete environmental review of the land use applications must be conducted by the CEQA lead agency before any authorization can be granted that would allow the proposed activities to be implemented, and that segmenting the environmental review of this CFA application would therefore be equally protective of the environment. Whereas the town will continue to participate with the Mohonk Preserve and other stakeholders in the planning process for these lands, and through the town planning board, review specific actions proposed to make sure activities envisioned are consistent with the town's open space plan, farmland preservation plan, comprehensive plan, and general zoning laws. And whereas the town board recognizes that the Mohonk Preserve has continued to adhere to the commitments made beginning in 2012 to work collaboratively with the town board, including 1, the work done by the preservation in support of the designation of the testimonial gateway structure by the town of New Paltz Historic Preservation Commission. 2, meeting regularly with other stakeholders to gather formative neighborhood and community input on conceptual planning for the trailhead project. And 3, advancing other projects of mutual interest to plan for potential trail access linkage, such as the planning toward a potential flats trail connecting from the Wallkill River Bridge west across the Wallkill Flats. Whereas the town board recognizes the commitment of the preserve to work collaboratively with the town board on issues of concerns to the town regarding the activities of the preserve and the use of its lands, including traffic control, litter, and reduced tax base consistent with the 2012 letter to the supervisor from the executive director of the preserve. Whereas the town board and preserve recognize that any conclusion with respect to the merits of the project itself would be premature, as the project undergoes environmental review, and specific plans and activities will evolve to address issues and concerns identified in the course of that review. But it is the sense of the town board that the project, as proposed, is generally consistent with the town's existing preservation goals and land use objectives, as reflected in the town's existing zoning, comprehensive, and open space plans. Now, there it be resolved that the town board of town New Paltz does hereby, 1, for the limited purpose of allowing submission of the CFA application for consideration in the 2014 funding cycle, determine that this action should be segmented for purposes of CEQA review, that full environmental review of the action will be conducted in the course of the land use approval, and that the CFA funding application does not have the potential to cause any significant adverse environmental impact on the environment, and that a negative declaration limited to the CFA application itself may be issued. 2, express its general support for the proposed CFA application, recognizing that if the grant application is successful, those actions that will be funded pursuant to the application will be subject to the ongoing town planning and review process noted above. And 3, authorizes the town clerk to send a copy of this resolution to the Commission of the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation in support of the submission of the Mohonk Preserves CFA application for a grant under the Environmental Protection Fund.
Do you want a second?
Second, for discussion.
Okay. So just again, so everyone understands that because this grant application comes around once a year, and the opportunity to get money to fund the work on the testimonial gateway, which is what this grant is specifically for, is the reconstruction of the testimonial gateway in of itself and the work around there, this, if this should pass, it's lending its support, but as it goes through the process, if the process gets denied, the funding gets denied, and no money will be allocated whatsoever until after the entire SEQA process and the planning board process. And so by the board supporting this, it's if the project should get approved, you guys have the money to move forward, but if the project doesn't get approved or changes in any way, it's irrelevant to our supporting the application with you in front of the planning board. So let's open for discussion, if there is any, before we vote. Any questions?
Couple comments.
Sure, go ahead.
Glenn, how many acres does the preserve own in the town of New Paltz?
1,818 acres.
And you're proposing to add 572 more to that total?
534 is proposed.
What's the total assessed value of all your property?
I don't have that figure at hand.
Do you pay any real property tax to the town of New Paltz?
No, as you know, we are exempt under 420A.
Do you pay any real property?
No, we don't, because we're exempt under
So this
420A.
ties back into what Ira was saying. And we all live in the same community. And Ira said, no one is better or more deserving than another. And that's so true. And Rich, your comments tonight kind of say that there's naysayers, but really what it is it's a conflict between those that have and those that don't. And so I just want to read something here. State governments, as well as governments of various subdivisions, are under increased financial pressure. Federal revenue sharing dollars are decreasing at the same time that state and local budgets, largely composed of fixed costs that rise with the consumer price index or even more rapidly rising indices, are growing exponentially. States and localities must therefore turn to their own tax bases to close budget gaps. But with increases in tax rates, a largely forbidden topic, for those who wish to seek re-election with any chance of success, state and local legislatures are examining their tax base to see whether they can capture taxes from residents or entities that now enjoy immunity. There's an interesting article that I read. It's Real Property Tax Exemptions at Risk, written by Gerald Rosenberg. And basically, he highlights the fact that 501c3 corporations are exempt from federal taxation and also from state taxation. This is income taxation. So 501c3s don't pay federal tax, don't pay state tax, but the New York State Legislature in 1971 made it more difficult for the 501c3s to get an exemption from real property taxes. And for that reason, they created a local option for communities that wanted to separate out the traditional not-for-profits from the non-traditional ones. So the traditional ones deal with religious, educational, hospital, mental and moral improvement of men, women, and children. Then there's a whole category of other people.
And you left out charitable.
Charitable, yeah, charitable, which means you're giving people who really are desperate an opportunity to live, okay? So my problem here is you're asking us to help you get taxpayer money to help you buy property to take it off the tax roll again. I have a real problem with that.
Well,
And
I appreciate your recitation of the existing laws in New York State, which
So let me ask you another
allow us to
question,
be
Glenn,
taxed.
because I'm on the town board.
Okay.
Did you get a letter from the tax assessor from the town of New Paltz telling you that your property is going back on the tax roll?
No, we did not.
We had not?
No.
Okay. Because the town of New Paltz tax assessor recently went to a seminar. And at that seminar, they were told But because we have a local option, we haven't enforced it, and we intend to enforce it. So my point is, we have these competing interests in the community. We can't afford to allow organizations like yours to continue to grow beyond where they should be growing. Why aren't you happy with 1,800 acres? Why do you need another
Could I ask the
575?
town, sir, what would you like to see happen on those lands,
Okay,
other
here's what I
than
would
its
like.
protection?
I would love you to continue doing what you're doing on the lands, and I would support you in your ideas to expand, because you're expanding to attract more visitors that will pay you more money. Now, what's the daily user rate right now?
$12 for hiking.
12?
Yes.
For a daily?
Yes.
For anyone. So my point to you is, you have the opportunity in your business model to pass the real property tax costs that we would collect, that we would use for the school and for the town and the county, to keep guys like Ira in the community, because he can't afford a 5 and 7% tax increase every year. You have the ability to pass that on to your end users and not hurt yourself. Your latest 990 says you have $8.5 million in cash. Is that true?
Every dollar we make,
but
sir,
you
goes to
have-
our mission.
you have
We have
eight-
operating
I
deficits.
understand that, Glenn, but you have 8.
Well, apparently you don't. I'm sorry.
I do. You are here because you're asking us to support your application for tax dollars to help you expand your business model.
I'm asking, sir, this board if you would like to have a state investment in the lifestyle, the benefits that this organization is bringing to New Paltz and has brought to New Paltz for 50
I have no problem
years.
with that, Glenn, but I want you to pay your taxes.
I appreciate your point of view. I appreciate your point of
Let's say
view.
your property's worth $10 million in assessed value. That would bring $333,000 into the community. It would help offset the increases in the school budget, would help us, Susan, Zemet, Jeff, all of us.
Right.
There haven't been tax increases. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to make sure there aren't any more tax increases. So
You have, as an entity, as a town, New Paltz has 148 exempt parcels. We hold 10 of those.
Glenn, your property is probably one of the most valuable properties in the town, correct?
No, I would argue that if you look at those 148 exempt properties, open space land at its open space value is this is mountain land that your planning documents say should be
Trying to
protected.
bring in more people to visit.
We're actually not.
Yes, you are.
Our business model, as you call it, is to
You're
try to
trying to
rationalize access.
Rational. I love your choice of words. We're trying to rationalize access. Like you said last
In
time.
relationship to the
Let me just say one more thing. Last time you were here, you said that the preserve is free to its members. It's the same kind of like.
If one
language, free
wants to
its
support the
members,
preserve
but
with
it's
a
not
membership,
free to the public.
it is free to the public at our visitor center in the town of Gardner.
But
and it's-
overall, you have to pay to get in.
Yes.
My point to you is this, and believe me, I'm a minority in this, what I'm saying tonight. Okay? I really am. And I'm okay with it, because I'm comfortable in my heart with it, because I know there are old people in this town that can't afford it anymore when their heating bills are like $500 a month.
And their
But
school
Glenn,
tax bills are
what
70%
I
of
will
their
be
tax bill.
pushing for
Right.
is for Mohawk Preserve,
Mm-hmm.
OSI, and all those other entities that have had a free ride for far too long to start kicking in. Now, you give us $1,000 a year. Thank you very much. We had to ask for it last year.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did.
We give it voluntarily every year.
1,000.
That's right. It's not a lot of money.
No, it's not.
Because we're
Now, I would
voluntarily
think-
contributing.
I would think that an organization like yours that wants to come to the town board and ask for our support would do something more on a voluntary basis than having me lecture you about what you should be paying.
And I think this is a very
Can I
valid
interject that you asked
for
if
an
we had
agenda item later.
you asked if we had our exemption revoked, but what I answered is no. But we have been in communication with the local assessor, and we have prepared for her a comprehensive packet that will be delivered to her next week that
send you a
shows the
letter?
breadth and depth of
I understand what you're going to do.
Can I finish my sentence, please? That shows the breadth and depth of the exempt activities, charitable activities we engage in for the benefit of the community, for school children, adults, and families. And she can look at that and determine whether we fit into 420A or 420B, which is the question you're asking,
You got a
correct?
letter from her where she's saying that she wants to put you in a non-exempt category for next year. Is that
We
true?
did not get that letter, sir. No.
Well, that's what she's looking at doing.
It's not, but in a
It is relevant. It's a big picture for all of us.
And I think that we can have that
We-
discussion.
but we
I'm telling you for the record, we didn't get that.
Okay, wait, time out.
What we're not, hold on. Let me finish one thing. What we can't do is put the cart before the horse anymore. Okay, and this is not an analogy to Wilmerite, but we didn't let Wilmerite come in here and get a freebie. You're asking us to help you build your business model. And I'm supportive
We're
of that.
asking the town of New Paltz if it wants our help opening these lands up to the
But I
public.
really want you to consider the fact that you have to come to us and help us. You can't just keep coming here and asking us to help you.
Right.
Now,
Well,
I think
who is us and
the
you?
problem is your management has been so used to getting what they want that it's like carte blanche. You can't do that anymore.
I have
So
one
want
comment,
you-
if I may.
I want you to go back. I want you to talk to your people. And I want you to seriously consider coming to the town and making a proposal to pay taxes.
Okay, before you make a comment, Eric, I just want to set the record. What Glenn got, because I've talked to Glenn, I've talked to OSI about these letters because I didn't know the letters went out. I got phone calls about the letters, and so I went to check what was going on. Mohawk Preserve got a letter that said, we want you to give us documentation to justify your charitable donation, your charitable exemption. So they didn't get theirs revoked. They got a letter saying they've got to justify it. OSI got a letter that said theirs was being revoked. And OSI is responding to it. And OSI has also said, and I've asked them when they send the record to the assessor to please send it to the board so we have it at the same time. They're saying that they believe that the ICIB, as it was established for the town, is actually constitutional legal. I don't know if that's true or not, but I asked
The
them.
ICIB.
Well, whatever. But I asked them to send us all the documentation they're putting together, as from their for their lawyers to give to the assessor, so we'll have it at the same time. So I just want the record.
And the assessor will have our comprehensive package.
So
next week.
OSI, right? Open Space Institute. Their 990 says they're worth $350 million.
Okay, so Eric, you wanted to say something, and then
I only had a very brief comment. Obviously, this is a very large discussion, and there are lots of different...
We need a big
Sure,
discussion.
fair enough. But I don't know that the preserve in this particular moment is the best place for all of that. Let me finish. And there are a lot of different opinions about nonprofits and how they work, and I think that would be a better discussion with people that can really argue both sides of that case in a better way, in a more prepared way. But the point I want to make now is that Mohawk Preserve, in undertaking the Trailhead project, are fulfilling priorities in the open space plans developed by the town of New Paltz. So in a sense, we're providing the
I love
service
that argument.
to
It's a great
you.
argument. It's a great one.
And that's all I wanted to say.
You guys have been implementing those plans in this community for the last 10 years. So all you're doing is creating your own roadmap.
Can we call for a vote?
Okay, anyway, I just want to make one statement, then we'll call for a vote, but I just want to say, because a statement was made, and I don't think it was 100% fair. I know I can speak for myself, and I believe I'm speaking for other board members, but I know for myself because I've spent a long time working on property tax reform, and I've dedicated my life to property tax reform, and I spent a lot of my own time up in Albany advocating for property tax reform. So while I agree with the fact that there's inequity in our tax structure and our tax base, and quite frankly, whatever law you just read, Kevin, those senators and assembly people are the same people that 15, 20 years, actually probably 20 years ago, because I was supervisor 15, this was long before I even got a supervisor, I would go to the school board meetings, and people were always complaining about school taxes. And I had suggested that we create a committee that looks to go, like, just, that sometimes when you ask people for money and it goes into the general fund, people don't want to give money. But if you go to an organization like Mohonk Mountain House or Mohonk Preserve or whatever and say, we'd like you to give money to buy computers for the kids. Now, we're talking 20 years ago. They might be willing to give money because it's going to something specific, and people like to give money that they can actually touch and feel. So a committee was formed. I ended up being on the committee. It was through the school district. And we met every 2 weeks. And every 2 weeks, the assessor would come in and say, oh, horse farms for breeding horses was taken off the tax rolls because some senator had some big donor, that gave money, and so all of a sudden horse farms were off. Then 2 weeks later, he'd come in and tell us something else was taken off of the tax rolls. And 2 weeks later, so the senators and assembly people created the problem that is all of this property off the tax rolls because their donors are giving them money, and now we're sitting here sucking it up and paying.
I agree with you.
Okay, so my point being is that I think we all have a serious problem. We know that that there are more for sale signs up right now than there are flowers sprouting, that we have a real problem, which is why we're killing ourselves on this board to reduce taxes and reduce spending. But ultimately, it's a bigger problem, it's a bigger issue. Mohonk Preserve didn't create it, and so to sort of hold them accountable in a way, but ultimately, we all know how we feel about all this stuff, and it is a bigger issue, and we really have to fight it on a very big level. But right now, for the moment, the state has our taxpayers' money. They're going to be giving it to somebody, and there is a project in front of the planning board. The planning board will vet the project out. If the planning board should decide, after all the public input and all the public comments and all the challenges and whatever, and there might even be an Article 78, who knows, whatever, but it's going to go through its process. It might not be the project that's on the table right now.
I understand, but if this was Wilma right here tonight, what would you be doing?
What would I be doing?
I suggest if we want to continue to have this discussion, we put it on an agenda item for another meeting.
No.
With all due respect.
Dan, with all due respect, it's a bigger issue, it has to be dealt with now.
But with all due respect, we have a motion that was seconded.
I know, but for discussion, I'm still discussing it. It's been swept under the carpet for too long.
So then let's put it on the agenda for next meeting.
These guys
if we want to do
have
that.
the money to pay us.
So let's talk
Okay,
about it.
but okay,
at an
so
appropriate time.
that is another issue in terms of how we want to handle all the tax exemptions in the town and how we move forward. You're studying it, you're researching it.
That's why I'm talking tonight.
So, which is fine and it's okay, but
I mean, if I just make one comment, one is, and Kevin, I do hear clearly what you're saying, and you and I have discussed this. The one part I'm finding, well, there's many parts, but the one large troubling part I'm finding is the value of open space. And just to follow to your extreme, should we be going down to New York City and Central Park is complete waste? You know what that land is worth?
Jeff, I got you.
Well, no, you don't get me.
No,
Because if you got me, you're dismissing me right away with that. Because you're saying that there's no
I'm not dismissing
value.
you. I'm saying to you that we can't walk into this open space and use it. We have to pay.
Well,
We have to pay 3 times. We pay to go in and use it. We pay when they take 570 acres off the tax rolls, and we pay because they get state money to buy the land and take it off the tax rolls.
And
that's 3 times.
And we get from them the value of open space, which has been proven in every study since the turn of the century. And we had a Republican president that actually went on to create the national park system because he understood the value of when you go off to take open space, that the value of a piece of land next to open space, next to a park, is directly associated. You agree, and you do real estate.
I do.
It's directly valued to that open space.
But this,
so would you?
This is a business venture.
Can I use your question over this? Let's take this Butterville Foothills land. Okay, take Mohonk Preserve, take OSI, take everyone out. What would you like to see on that land?
Mohonk Preserve.
No, I just take it all out.
I would like to call the question.
Okay. Well, I think though, and just to think we're not all deliberating on it.
You wouldn't be able to deliver the programs to 44 schools.
How much money are you raising to buy this 500 acres? How much?
Chairperson, call for a
How much?
Okay, so.
Enough to pay your taxes for 10 years.
Okay.
Dan's asked to call the question, so.
So we're calling the question, and I'm the only one here trying to protect people like
Oh,
Iris.
that's not fair. That's really not fair. That's not a fair, Kevin. That's not fair.
I'm trying to protect. Look, I'm trying. Yeah, everyone's going to vote yes.
All
except for me.
those in favor of the resolution.
No, we will do that, but no.
We can gloss over it. Go ahead.
It's not a matter of
It's not glossing over it. You are having a conversation that is inappropriate based on the resolution that we have on the floor. If you want to have this conversation, please
It's
put it on
not
the agenda.
inappropriate to keep people in their their houses.
No, Kevin, come on.
Come on. Kevin, come on, that is completely unfair, and that is a, your statement is...
Hyperbole is when you say,
Okay,
listen,
okay.
hyperbole is when you
Chris,
say
Chris.
that the preserve is free to its members. I love that.
Okay. So,
They could build 130 houses on that.
They have the
property this
money
year.
to help us.
They're saving you money. You're not dipping into
okay,
the bond.
okay, everybody.
You have a legacy mentality. Is your
I just want to
You have a right wing.
I just want
All those-
to, okay, guys, stop. Everybody needs to be treated with respect, okay? I will just say, though, from what I understand, that when Mohonk was selling the land, and OSI put in a bid, that there was another bid that was put on the table for a project of the magnitude of Woodland Pond to go into the, foothills of the preserve and stuff. So that's what they were looking, that was what was looking to go in there. So anyway, right now, again, it's a conversation, taxes off the tax rolls. Look, I'm trying to take the college on to just get some help with the police, okay? So it's a bigger issue. This town board, every single one of us has been committed to holding down taxes, putting ourselves inside out to reduce spending, not raise taxes, but lower taxes.
Then why-
It's a bigger issue, and we're going to still work on it.
Why do you want to give them the green light?
Right, we're not. Right now, all we're doing,
I'm voting no.
right, all we're...
I'd like to ask the town clerk to please do a roll call for a vote.
Okay, so all we're doing, guys, stop.
Can I please request that the
Yes.
town clerk do a roll call for a vote?
Supervisor,
Yes.
Councilman Berry,
Absolutely not.
Councilman Torres,
Yes.
and Councilman Logan.
Yay.
Okay, motion so carried. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And we would be glad to have a forum, a public forum, where we could have civil debate on the very issues you're
You'll be
talking
hearing
about.
more from me.
And I think we should
Thank you.
do that.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
of
you.
course we have to talk about this stuff. There's no doubt about that, but not when it's just a... Okay, so let's figure out...
Very nice.
Okay, let's figure out, based on the fact that okay, Stacy, let's bring up Stacy next.
Poor Stacy's on.
Let's bring up Stacy.
Poor Stacy's on 9:30, and I saw her here at 8 o'clock. So.
Take care. It's all right. You don't need to know that, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So now we're going to discuss residential vacant and rental maintenance and registration law. We'll wait till everybody...
Agree on.
What? Something we can grab? Okay. Just so everybody understands, and we'll let Stacy do a little bit of an introduction, thing, but we have a lot of properties because of taxes and other problems and issues in New York State. We have a lot of people who are abandoning their homes, and we don't have any teeth in our law to allow Stacy, as the code enforcer, building inspector, to go out and help to make sure that these facilities, buildings, these houses are being maintained. And a lot of neighbors are now having a lot of problems with empty space and, abandoned houses next door. And then other houses that are now having a lot of students moving in and a lot of cars being parked on the property and a lot of other issues. And again, she's got no ability to manage this. So I will turn it over to Stacy, who has been working very hard with Attorney George Lithgow on this particular law.
Hi. Back in March, I individually delivered a draft copy of a local law that we've been working on for several years. We were actually commissioned to do it by the prior administration. I think, George, it's been about 3 years. We've been
How many things have we wrapped up?
I don't know, for about 3 years. We've been working on it. We have seen a trend in New Paltz based on the downturn in economics. We have a number of vacant homes that have been abandoned, that have been foreclosed on, that have not yet been foreclosed on but have been abandoned. Some the banks currently own. We really have no way of finding these people, getting in touch with them, and enforcing the property maintenance codes of the state as well as our local zoning. So part of what this local law does is help address the vacant homes, requires all vacant homes to be registered, which lets us know where everybody is, who owns what. And it also provides the town with a mechanism to go in and to take care of any issues if we can get the property owners or
the bank.
The bank, or it also requires them to have, it's late, my brain is shutting.
No, you're fine.
She's just tired.
I'm tired. It also requires them to have local property management, okay? If they're not within 15 miles, I believe local law says 15 miles of the property, they have to have, somebody local to deal with the maintenance. It also provides for the town to go in to deal with it, and then to collect the monies within 60 days. If we don't collect the monies, we can assess it to their taxes. That's what the vacant portion of the law does. The rental portion of the law does, what that does, we have a lot of homes are being rented, single-family homes are being rented in what were once quiet neighborhoods, and we're having a lot of issues with maintenance, parking, noise, things of that nature. This law will enable us to require all non-owner occupied, single-family and two-family homes to be registered with the town. They would be required to have a permit to rent their single-family home. They will be required to have an inspection. The permit is good for 3 years. The inspection would happen once every 3 years at renewal. That is consistent with the state requirement for multiple dwellings. Multiple dwellings have to be inspected once every 3 years. The law will also require the property owners, if they don't live within a 15-mile radius of the property, to have a maintenance company that is local. It will also, maintenance, inspection, registration, once every 3 years.
Single family.
Single family. It will also give us a list. We'll know which homes are being rented, okay? It will allow the neighborhoods to get action. If they fail to comply, they get taken to court. They can have their permit revoked, and we can also tax their assessment.
Is there anything you want to add, George, that she might have left out? And if you do, you got to take a microphone.
No.
No, because you got to take the microphone?
No to
or
everything?
Not everything? You don't want to add anything?
I know we've been working on this. I know I've been hearing of this for 6 years, 7 years, and it was a problem then in several of our neighborhoods. I think there was one thing was, George, how do you, the one thing I did is there was a piece in there, the one about, I can't find it now. One is the permitting consistent with most other communities?
Yes, we've made a special attempt to be consistent with the issues that have been identified. A number of communities have adopted this. It's been, I think, first on Long Island. There's been issues down there with rentals. But more recently, I'm reading cases or newspaper reports, Saugerties, I believe, Kingston. There are communities all around them doing this. Beacon has done it.
Town of Ulster?
Town of Ulster. So yes, it's a common problem, it's a common concern, and this is following a fairly standard format that's been identified and approved by courts who have addressed this issue.
And now, the other one was, I just remembered what it was using a local management company. How are we ensured that the local management company, are these, do you use bonded companies? I don't know really much about them.
The attempt really is to identify somebody who will be designated as the responsible party by the property owner if the property owner isn't residing in the town or near the town. Because the problem that comes up is if you have a transfer, if there's a foreclosure, and somebody in Illinois, you don't know who it is, you don't know how to address them. If there's an emergency on the property, if there's a neglect or need to take some action with respect to the property, you can't find the guy, and then you can't get hold of him, and it becomes a real impediment for prompt enforcement. So this is requiring property owners to designate someone. It's not, in my opinion, a bondable kind of event, because what you're simply saying is, this is the person to call. There's a fire, this is the person to call when grass isn't mowed, this person to call when a tree falls over and knocks down the neighbor's fence. This is how you get in contact with the proper person.
Now, I'll just use an example. An individual takes a house, and this is where we're seeing some of the issues. A single-family house, rents it to a group of students. As the...
It's a single-family residence.
No, I agree. No,
Okay, the town code does not provide for student housing.
I'm with you, and they keep it as they
boarding
say.
houses, and a family is defined within the code.
So
It limits non-related persons to 5.
So you have 5 people in there, and what do you do when they designate one of the students as the contact?
The contact becomes a responsible person and can be served upon as if the owner.
And it's not just a simple designation like call Joe.
Right.
It's going through a process, there is a form, the information has to be provided. Primarily, the intent is to get contact information for that person.
And is that enforceable?
That person is going to be responsible.
And is that enforceable?
Is it responsible for them to fill it out? Yes.
Go ahead, Dan.
There's
So
a registration.
Yes.
I actually spoke with a resident, I referred them to town hall, I don't know if they called, who was upset about, and this is semi-related, a neighboring property that had gone into foreclosure, and she felt that the upkeep of the property was not good, which potentially was affecting the home value of the property. So in an example where the bank takes over a property, how does one then contact, for example, a bank?
Well, the bank would be required to have someone local.
Okay.
And the local property manager would be served upon as if they were the bank.
So then, and also in the event, and in regards to this law as well, let's say, we'll just use a lawn example. You didn't mow your lawn, your grass is 2 feet. I'm not sure about our municipality, but I know there are municipalities that Chris's team will go out and mow the lawn and then bill the property owner. Is that something that?
This law does address that.
Yes.
What'll happen is I'll say to you, you have a violation, you need to correct it within 5 days. Okay? If you don't correct the violation, then I could potentially have the town take care of it.
Okay.
But you would do that
You
as a
have to,
last resort.
as a last resort. We just don't jump in
No,
and
I
do it.
understand.
I mean, we have to notice them that they have a violation. We have to give them the opportunity to remedy the violation.
But
Give a
also,
notice to abate. If they don't
That's right.
honor that, you can bring criminal proceeding against them.
Could, yes.
but simultaneously, if we should go out and mow, do we value the time that was spent, and then we charge that back to,
Oh, not only their time, my time as well.
so it's not like we just go out and mow it, there's a...
And George's.
So George,
Right.
there's no provision to lien the property for expenses?
There is a provision to do that.
There is.
Yes.
And what, are you leaning it with a judgment? Are you leaning it with a mechanics lien? How are you leaning it?
It would be a lien that would attach to the property in the same manner as a real property tax.
And it can be done.
So that's unlike a mechanics lien, which is a little harder to get
Right.
then? Because ours is like we're actually increasing their tax bill, so to speak.
Yeah.
So someone at closing, that has to be
They'd have
paid.
to pay, they'd have to
Right.
either bond it or pay it.
Whereas a mechanics lien, you can negotiate out or not pay.
Well, mechanics lien, there's a mechanism for basically foreclosing your lien and reducing that to a judgment, but it takes some time.
But in this case, when it's added to your actual tax bill, it will need to get paid
Yes.
at closing.
And generally, the
Non-negotiable.
theory that I've seen is, if you take someone and you say, you can either mow it, or you can pay for the town to come out at town rates, the building inspector's time, the attorney's time to make sure that this is done in the proper manner, you can pay $15 per hour to have some kid mow it, or you can pay the town at town rates.
Did you just say the attorney will mow the lawn? I want to get that straight. Because that's an option. I might want to look into for my property.
Well, since we're charging the landowner, it doesn't matter if it's $250 an hour to mow the lawn.
So Stacy, really, it's...
And the law is pretty specific in how all that happens, okay, and how the town board vets the bills, and how the applicant has the opportunity to view the bills, et cetera, et
So
cetera.
you're just trying to encourage people that abandon their homes to register them,
Yes,
so that you at least have some access to somebody,
yes,
so that you're not spending hours trying to find somebody to talk to.
yes.
Well, we're not encouraging, we're legislating.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we're requiring.
I mean, I will say,
It'll be a requirement, but yes, we need, that's what we need.
But when you lien that property, there's no impact to them ultimately anyway, because it's going to be the bank. So
Well,
you just-
hopefully, the banks will turn these properties over fast enough where there'll be someone in there and living.
Well, we know
Well, but
some
we'll-
properties along Springtown Road.
Well, I mean, the truth, well, but we are getting, and Dan, we did get, I don't,
see
well,
the
we can
grass?
compare names later, but we're getting more and more calls of,
1-3 right now.
we're getting more and more calls of people who have abandoned houses next door that are having problems and issues, and
Has it ever been worse than this?
No,
No.
I think I got 5 on North Putt.
That's why I'm saying.
yes, we know.
We gotta raise more money.
We know that. We all agree. We all agree.
You know, and it's also, and it, like I said, it's not just the vacant homes, it's also the non-owner occupied rentals.
Okay, so, in terms of actions taken, I mean, we have to refer this to the county planning board.
Well, I think we should. It's not a zoning law per se, but the wetlands law got in trouble because it wasn't referred. I'd rather refer it as the county tells us they don't want to.
And then we don't have to refer this to the planning board, or should we also?
You could. I mean, there's no, again, no harm. There's no requirement for you when you adopt a local law to refer every law.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion to refer this law to the,
So moved.
so refer it to the county planning board and the town planning board? Any discussion?
We discussed,
Discussion on the motion.
we do want to refer this to the town planning board?
He said it doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt?
It's our call.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. I do that.
We're not going to have to incur a lot of legal costs because the lawyer already worked on it.
Actually, I think the planning board may have seen it at some point already.
Well, okay, well, actually, I'm meeting with Michael, Jeff and I are meeting with Michael Calamano tomorrow at 12
It's been a
o'clock,
while,
so we'll ask him. So if it was referred, we won't.
No, it
refer-
wasn't referred, but I think they
He saw it.
have.
Okay, but anyway, so we're going to refer it to the planning board and the county planning board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion so carried. Anything else on this?
Do you contemplate setting a public hearing on this, or do you want to go through
You want us-
further review?
Does anybody want to go through further review, or are you comfortable to set the public hearing?
I'm personally comfortable.
Okay,
I'm good.
so Rosanna, I know we have a lot of public hearings, so
Yeah, just a few.
We have 2 public hearings on June 26th. The 19th might be too soon.
okay.
We're going to have to wait, if we submit this even this week to county, are we too late for county? That's got to be,
It's probably too late.
yeah, so Susan, it's not going to get to county to the following month anyway, because county requires like 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, we're actually waiting for them to get back to us on access management.
They're doing that in June.
Right.
Yeah.
So they probably won't even look at this until July.
So you want to set so let's set it for the first meeting in July?
It's the 17th.
Okay, so you want to set it for July 17th at 7:15?
Let's do it.
Okay, do I have a motion to set the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, motion- 7:15, July
17.
July 17th. Okay, motion so carried. Anything else, George, that you want to ask us to do?
No?
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your work, Steve.
Okay.
Thank you for
Stacy, you might
staying
want to
out.
stay, because why don't we do, did they
Annexation.
leave? They left. Okay. Can't believe they left. The people who wanted the annexation.
Yeah, it was
Could have-
nice meeting.
They could have answered some questions. Okay, why don't we just stay, let's do the annexation real quick. You know about the annexation for the
I do.
Pisano property? So we have actually not this meeting to have to necessarily take action, but by the next meeting in June, the first meeting, the third week of Thursday, we have to take action on what we want to do. So what the town has to do is, if we're going to agree with this annexation, we have to show the public benefit, or if we deny it, we have to show why there is no benefit to the public. Part of the problem is right now that there's no project on the table. When the Floyd Niffen annexation was reviewed by the town board before Jeff was, I think, the only one on the board at the time that's sitting here now, they had an actual plan that they were able to review. There's no plan, so what Carol did was she asked the village board to send over their B3 Gateway District zoning. So what we have to do is really probably look at the worst case, the build out to the max, and then see from that perspective what we think in regards to the impact on the town residents.
It's going to require some more work because the way this local law reads, the first floor.
This one.
First floor is retail.
Right.
Office space, etc. Second floor can be professional offices and residential, and anything higher than that's residential. So as you pointed out in your memo, this property is located and surrounded by residential properties. So that's number one.
The residential properties, it's currently located in an R1 zone, okay?
Surrounded on that side of the street.
On the east side is surrounded by residential
Right,
properties.
west side is different.
That's correct.
So there's two things, really. One is current character is residential on that side, right? And number two, there may be some precedent set which could change the entire character of that strip as other people that have these lots that are bisected by the village town line decide to file a petition to be annexed to the village as well. Maybe because there's some
So
benefit.
those would be properties coming south on 32. I think Susan has a map.
Seen it.
Okay. I don't know that there are that many.
A couple.
There's a couple. Yeah, I don't think that there are that many. Also, the properties to the north on that side, although they are residential, you've got churches.
You want to look, George?
And the majority of the properties, not all, but I think the majority of the properties on the east side of 32 going north to Shivertown are multiple dwellings. They're pre-existing non-conforming.
So
pre-existing non-conforming.
Yes. They're not all. I mean, you do have, single-family homes in there, but you have quite a number of multiple dwellings along that strip as well.
Well, I mean, part of it is you come in down 32, because I went yesterday to look, and if I understand correctly, and you can't answer it, it's the piece of when you make a right onto Sunset Ridge, it's that there's a little house with a shed to the right, and then I think is it the next house that's like a little white cape or something? It's those two pieces of property. So one is a really nice house, and one is a smaller house, right? Whatever. Across the street is the church. Across the street is Jehovah's Witness, and then on the other side is the other piece of property, I guess, on the town side.
Well, across the street, the one church is now being renovated into a single-family home.
The Jehovah's Witness or the church?
The former Jehovah Witness, which was Christ the King, and then
Right.
it was...
It's going back to a house.
It's now going back to the parsonage for Christ the King.
George, is there an ability under the law to make an election if your property is in part of one zone and partly in another? Is there somehow for us to allow them to elect to use it one way or the other so the property stays partially within the town?
There is a provision in your zoning law which allows joining, if one parcel is bisected by a lot line, you can elect to use the more, we call it the more intense.
So we could allow this to occur without annexation then?
Well, they would have to follow our zoning, though. In other words, so it wouldn't involve the density that they're looking for.
He's saying that if you...
No, but that would apply only to the town zoning. if they want to take advantage of village zoning, it would have to be in the village.
But, yeah, but my point is, if, let's say we wanted to keep part of this property in the town and let the other part in the village, is there a mechanism where we can allow them to do the development that is permitted under the village law? Why not? Why can't we give them a special permit or something? Or a variance?
Well, there's no provision for it in your code, and generally you can only zone the property that's in your jurisdiction, or in the town.
I'm just wondering if there's a mechanism so we can avoid annexation and kind of accomplish what they want to accomplish here, as long as the neighbors are okay with it.
But I think the problem is, though, is so the total, though, when you combine the two, and Kevin, let me know if I'm confusing what you're saying. So when we combine the two, it's going to come out to 1.2 acres.
Understand that
Right.
he's got two parcels there.
Two parcels.
One parcel is bisected by the municipal line, the other parcel is wholly within the town.
I'm with you.
Just
Go
a
ahead, Dan.
clarification, my understanding of this process, and obviously I've not done this process before, is that there has to be a benefit to the town in order to do this.
Right.
Have we
That's it.
established?
Well, that's what we're discussing now.
That's what we're trying to talk about.
Because we're trying to figure out what, we don't know what the project
Be a
is.
benefit to both.
That's what we're trying to
Yeah, well,
discuss. That's exactly what
That's what we're trying to figure out here,
And
and
the
I'll
school
use
district.
We'll
Gotta
use
be a
it.
benefit.
So it's actually, okay, and then I
Everybody.
We use the example of Nippon, like I was here when we did the Nippon, and you were here, obviously, too, and when we did the Nippon annexation, there was a clear plan, and it showed in the plan that the benefit was that it allowed density, for which we could not do in the town. The village could do the density plan that Nippon had seen for it. Plus, it allowed for open space, allowed for a few other vehicles that we don't have. So to this, Dan, we're trying to figure out what is, because we don't know what the plan is. The only plan we know so far is in combining the lots.
I'm just wondering if you like the zoning that the village has, you could change the zoning in that area to be compatible with the village's zoning.
Well, see, the thing is, I mean, I think we
Well,
can.
that's another idea.
Okay, so as I understand the annexation process, because asking questions and stuff, we as a board, for the moment, we either think it's in the public good and we agree, or it's not in the public good and we turn it down. Those are our only choices right now relative to annexation. If we should choose to turn it down, but say that we're turning it down because we think there's another way to go, we could do that too. And to answer your question, Dan, in the sense of the public good, because there is no project, what was recommended is look at the total build-out based on the B3 district and then judge if that would be a benefit to the community. And so when I went and looked at the site, to sort of understand it, I think some concerns that we might want to have is it's allowed to be 4 stories. And because of that neighborhood, that's a little bit, the 4 stories might be a little, it's coming into the gateway, there's nothing there. It's like, it probably would be very nice to have a really nice entrance to the gateway coming in south and to do something nice there. 4 stories, though, when it's a residential neighborhood, might be a little much. So where we go from there, I don't know. Maybe the suggestion is to not do the annexation and then figure out how to rezone. I don't know, but that's what we're trying to discuss right now, is how to judge the benefit or the lack of benefit.
Maintain community character.
Right.
Because there is the community character as a component to it, and that community character, I mean, you get up into, Van Alst, you get up to Willie's Lane, Willie's Road, all that. Those are all very, very residential roads. Used to just having school buses go up twice a day, 3/4 of the year, so.
Right, but you've also got, you've also hired a planner to do a joint comprehensive plan. Has anybody talked to him about this?
That's
Not yet.
That's a subject for another day.
Okay.
Let's put it this way.
But a very good-
It won't
but a good
get
sign.
answered through there, but somebody has to help us answer it. But
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think unless someone has a comment on next steps, what is the pin has been pulled on the grenade here, so what do we need to do now? I'm looking at an attorney for an answer on that.
I mean, you have a B2 district across the street. You've got multiple dwellings up 32. It's the closer you get your higher density is closer to the village. You know, I mean, that's all part of, you know, what we were looking at.
But basically, Stacy, this is a rezoning issue.
I know,
That's what it boils down to.
I know.
So if we, the B2,
Just one comment. Generally, in an annexation, there's a difference in the municipal services that are available on one side of the water. Water and sewer in the village typically, there's not water and sewer in a town. That's an example. But that's the kind of distinction that you look at and you say, with municipal water and sewer, we can do more density, we can be more protective of environmental resource. So there's a difference, one side versus the other. We generally do favor that, or if you find there's no difference, the municipalities don't favor, the losing municipality tends not to favor losing a property where there's no significant benefit gained by anyone.
But don't you
There's
want
currently-
public input?
we had,
No, I know, but more concentrated public input once they understand what the adjoining property will be used for. You go through that whole process when you rezone.
Yes, and you would go presumably, or you could, depending on the zoning, go through that process when the zoning is applied and someone makes an application. But at that point, they do have the zoning and they may have some level of entitlement. This is a purely discretionary activity on your part.
So
There is water currently at that end of town. He wouldn't be able to hook up as a town resident. He would be able to hook up as a village property. You
That's
know,
a sewer and water
But he is a village
district.
property, right?
That's a water district,
Yeah,
but not sewer district.
There-
No.
I believe there's no sewer.
There's no sewer.
Water.
That is a water district,
Does he
I
have
think
village
so,
water
yeah.
now, Stacy?
you know what, I don't think that there's,
I think,
I'm not so sure if there's actually, I think that lot may be vacant, that front lot may be vacant.
yeah, it looks like.
And
it
part
might
of the
be.
problem is, the reason why he wants to incorporate that second lot is because of the topo of the first lot. And I think the front of that lot is not technically buildable because of the topo of it.
That doesn't then match
take-
the
can you
Main
take-
Street approach.
Can you
that
take
the
the
village
microphone,
code
Dave?
is looking for. If the front is not buildable, that wouldn't really match what I think the village code is looking for. It's kind of a Main Street build-out.
So
So it's possible, okay? It's possible that the development would be further into the parcel. Your access would be fronted possibly on 32, who knows,
Well,
there's no plan.
it says right here, the existing village portion of the lot is located on the corner of Route 32 North, East Side, and Sunset Ridge Road. The town portion of the lot is located behind the village portion of the lot and has road frontage on Sunset Ridge Road, but is accessed from Route 32 North. The town side is zoned R1, residential 1 acre. The portion consists of .67 acres. There is a single-family residence of approximately 1135 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and detached garage, private well, and septic. The assessed value of the town portion of the lot as of this writing is $205,300. There is no development within the village portion of the lot, and the assessed value is $7,300.
So we would lose how much of assessed value? 200?
205,300, 205,300.
It's not
So,
so much for
I
benefit
mean-
for the town.
I don't know how we can measure it without knowing more.
I mean, my concern is the 4 stories, on that corner, which is out of character with everything.
And that corner is now vacant, and if you're coming into town, so if you're coming from the north heading south, it's the parking lot to the Nazarene Church?
Church,
So,
yeah.
Church Nazarene, and you have the open space of, for those of us that have been here way too long, Old Kingston Road. So you have the old, where the road used to go through there. So if it is a 4-story, I think without the plan, we're kind of, to Dan's point, how do we know the character of it? We don't know what we're getting. So are we on, again, I guess I'll ask my esteemed attorney.
This is the one thing I didn't come prepared to talk about.
But I believe, is there not a time limit on it for which we need to make?
Yeah, we have to make a decision by...
90 days?
We had 90 days from when we closed the public hearing, and we have, unless we have some more special meetings, we're going to have to make a decision and take action at the June 17th meeting. The June 19th meeting is our deadline, drop dead date from the timeline of what we're allowed to do, which is why we're discussing it tonight, because we're going to have to take action at the next meeting. So whatever we have to do to come up with this determination of the public benefit or the non-public benefit, we have to know what we're doing, how we're moving forward, and have our attorneys draft up whatever it is that we need.
So if you wanted more information and got it, how would that be relevant? Because it wouldn't be binding on them in the future, would it?
No, it's
Well,
not.
it could be. It depends on whether they're willing to, for example, to deal with the height restriction, they could impose a covenant on the property at the time it is annexed.
We go. That's a good
Limiting
idea.
the structure to 2.5 stories, whatever.
So then I think we should ask for more detailed information.
We already have asked for more detailed
Have you gotten
information.
it? They were here tonight to give it to us?
And they were here and they left, and they were here and they left. So
Maybe they'll come back.
if they walk back through the door, we'll see, but they haven't since, we talked about it, they walked through, then they left. We tried to get as much information as we could. There is no plan. So that's why Carol then went to the village clerk to say, can you send me the B3 zoning, so we can look at the zoning, so we can assess the annexation based on total build-out under the zoning, because that's the only option we have right now, because there's no plan. So we can't get more information.
And the applicant does say, I look forward to meeting with, the applicant did state in a letter to the village and town board, I look forward to meeting with both boards to discuss this application. So,
Just not tonight.
well, that's been since January, and we still haven't had it discussed apparently. And I know we've discussed this multiple times, so I don't know if anyone's got any ideas.
I would put it over one more time, let them come back.
But we have to,
But
but we have to
again-
take action. We do have to take action, and I don't know
But
if we're
we-
going to need legal, if we deny it, that we need legal documentation to do it, or if we approve it, if we need legal, so I don't know what we need prepared for us to take action, and so therefore, I mean, we can have a special meeting, but the point is, I don't know if we can discuss it at the next meeting and then be forced to take action and not have the appropriate legal documents
Well, I think
in
the-
place to take action with.
Well, I think Kevin said something very critical, which is if our drop dead date is the 19th, and we sit here the 19th, and we hear everything about it, or we even get documents prior to then, I'm not comfortable making any decision without hearing from the neighbors in that neighborhood about what they would like to see, too.
Can you
And
get
I think their
extension
input
on
is
the
just as...
time?
Well,
Yeah, I don't think it gives us enough time.
I'm saying, is there a chance to get an extension so we can put in an additional meeting in?
I don't know under law. I mean, we did have a public hearing, and none of the neighbors did show up. That I do know.
But we didn't, but they didn't show, I wouldn't show up
I don't
either,
think
because
they
I don't
were
know,
aware of what was
I don't know what we're getting.
Yeah,
it's
but, I mean, I don't know if there's anything legally that gives us the ability to,
Spend that time.
unless the applicant gives us, agrees to give an extension possibly?
We can certainly find out, let you know by the 17th, and if there is need to have some action done by the applicant,
Okay.
if you can authorize the supervisor, you can just tell the supervisor, this is what the applicant has to do, which you can communicate to him. This is what we need from you before the 17th.
Okay, well, maybe what we could do as a board is maybe schedule a special meeting, have the applicant come in, ask the neighbors to come in, have a conversation about, and I think, at least, I get the sense that if there's a chance to do the annexation, that we might want them to agree to restrictions before we agree to do this, because I don't think the 4 stories,
I think the neighbors should then see a copy of the local law so they know the max scenario.
well, I think that we have to possibly,
Maybe we put it on the website or something.
okay, I'm just wondering if there's a way to simplify, so you don't have to give somebody a law that they have to try to read through and understand. You know, if there's a way to sort of just say, this is what total build-out would be, that could be this.
Your engineer can certainly apply the law to the property and tell you what the maximum that would be permitted.
You could.
Yes.
Okay, so is the board, would the board like to make a motion to have the engineer do a build-out based on the property and the law for this annexation?
So moved.
Second.
For discussion?
Do you want to set a,
Well,
how much do you think it's going to cost?
That's, I don't want to spend, I got to be honest with everyone.
I know.
I don't want to spend
Yeah.
any money on something I don't know what we're getting, and we may do nothing on. So
I know.
I really am not wanting to, is this sounding cheap? I don't want to spend any money on this.
No,
Unless I know what we're getting. I mean, I don't want to sit here and try to spot zone a corner on North Chestnut and Sunset Ridge, because I don't know what we're going to get, when the property is owned by two different separate people. There is a person representing that has a letter saying they're allowed to represent the one piece of property. So none of this may ever come to fruition, and we've paid a couple $1,000s in engineering and legal expenses. It's not for you, it's for the lawyer. You know what those guys cost? You ever seen these guys' bills?
We're ready to mow your lawn.
Thank you. And he'll mow my lawn.
So do you want to say?
At $2.25 an hour, apparently, but that's
So
what
do you
we're
want to withdraw the motion?
Well, we haven't, I don't think we made the motion and seconded it yet.
It was
You could use
Was
the
it?
work
It
to
was, yes.
support any conclusion you reach.
Well, we're going to have to do,
Well, what-
okay, well, let Dave say something, because he's, I think Dave's offering to give us free engineering advice.
or legal advice, whichever you want.
I would think the applicant would want to present his case here. I see Jeff's point that we're kind of doing something that the applicant should provide.
And I believe that's
Saying
his burden too, under the annexation law. He's proposing an annexation.
But
Okay.
Susan said there is no plan.
Right, that's what we're saying, is we need a plan. So I think I think if you want to withdraw your motion I would
Then what's the
entertain is, I would authorize the supervisor to contact the applicant and provide detailed plans to us.
Which
For
we
the
have,
property.
which we have already done.
Yeah, I don't see how.
We've already done it.
To make a determination on a plan.
Because the clock is ticking here, and there's just absolutely no way, special meeting notwithstanding, that then come June 19th, I am not going to make a decision to support something I don't know what I'm
How
supporting.
about if we do this? Have Susan send them a letter asking them if they have any other documents, including plans, that may support their desire to have us reach a conclusion that there's a public benefit.
Because I don't think any of us are against, so to speak, maybe density in that area. It sounds like Kevin was somewhat interested in maybe changing our zoning out there. This could be a great spot for density. I just don't know what we're getting. I like density in the core, and this could be an extension of the core. This whole corridor here, this could be a very good plan. I just don't know what we're getting.
And if he doesn't have a plan, then maybe in the future, when he does have a plan, he can come back and ask for his annexation.
Okay, so we have one of two choices. We can either just choose to deny it tonight because we can't justify a public benefit, and therefore just start drafting up the documentation.
But I wouldn't do that, only because he did come here tonight.
Right.
So we should give the resident of the town an opportunity, and the village, an opportunity to appear again.
I agree
The only
with that.
problem is, it's just that we'd have to have a special meeting, which is okay, but we have to have a special meeting because we can't wait till the 19th, because unless there's some legal, why don't we do this, okay? We can, George, would you be able to just check for us if, under the law, we have the authority that if the applicant should agree with us to give us more time, that we can then agree to have more time, so then we won't be working with a ticking clock. I don't know what I said.
Clicking top.
I know, be very careful. Okay, so if we could do that.
Parallel thought process you have. You keep the one block while you're in town meetings. I got it.
I'll let you know.
I'm
if we
so
can
tired,
extend
it's been a
it.
really long day.
Thank you.
Okay, so you'll let us know if we have the opportunity to push this out. If we do, then we can invite him to the meeting on the 19th, and we can go from there. If we don't have the opportunity to do that, then we will maybe schedule a special meeting. Is that okay?
It sounds good. And Kevin, do you want to withdraw your original motion?
Yes.
Okay, and who seconded it?
I did.
Okay, so you withdrew it, you seconded it, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. Okay, so does that wrap this conversation up for the annexation? Okay, so before anybody leaves, let's just see what, okay, that we need all you, okay, let's see. So some things we need you guys.
So we can prove that?
Yeah, but we have a couple of things, but we have to go into executive session, so you want to do a couple of other things. Okay, let's do some of these other things real quick. Let me just, very quickly, on the tree law.
I apologize.
Sure, let me put that back into,
Yeah, put that into the annexation file.
okay, where's my conversation?
Right.
Oh, it's right here. Okay. Okay, just very quick thing on the tree law. As you all know, we've been working for a while on doing groundbreaking legislation that if we want to do trees on Main Street coming into town and making Main Street tree lined, we can't do it because you have to do it in the right of way, and you can't do it in the right of ways because of, A, the plows clearing those streets, because of the utilities and all sorts of stuff. And there's a lot of money that comes from the federal government to plant trees, and only the cities can get it because towns and villages can't. So we've been working for a couple of years now with Al Wagner on trying to get a law in New York State. It would be the first one of its kind, and we've been working on it for a while. And we've been working with Al. Al was working with the DEC. The DEC is very excited about this law. He went to the Association of Towns, if you remember, 2 years ago. They took this on, and they did a lot of research and did a lot of work. And we're at the point now where we're about ready to draft the local law. So what's happening is Joe sent Al a sample local law just for him to use as a model. Al's going to basically try to draft the local law. Then we'll bring it back to Joe or to George to actually review it. In the interim, he just published, he was asked to write something on a blog for the New York State Urban Forestry Council. So it's a story of the Brow planting trees beyond the right-of-way and what it means. And it's a really, really great article that talks about how he had this idea for a long time, went to a bunch of towns. Nobody was interested except we were. I think I sent it to you all. And it's really, really great. So what he's suggesting to us, if anybody wants to see it, what he's suggesting to us is two things. He said a couple things we need to do, because there's a lot of grant money that would be available to us once we pass this law. And once we do adopt this or whatever, it will be the first law in the state. So what he said to us is that we should, the town should create a tree commission. That would be necessary to get points to score high enough for enough funds, and also to do the legwork, which would mostly be getting written permission from property owners. This could be a committee of the ENCC or a separate commission. So what I did was I talked to the ENCC. They're already responsible for cutting down the trees law that we have, where you have to go to the ENCC before you can cut a tree down. So they would be willing to be a tree commission as a subcommittee of the ENCB, and I'd rather do that than create a whole new committee. So he said they'd be willing to do that. So I'd like to have a motion by the board to create a tree commission as a sub-commission of the ENCB commission.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. Then he said that we should join, through the Department of Environmental Conservation, the New York Relief Program. I'll hold off on this. He said that we should join them because that also really would help us, and they're in charge of all of these programs. But I think it's only $100, but I wasn't able to get the actual amount, so we'll just hold off till the next meeting to do that, unless you want to just make a motion to join the New York Relief at a cost of up to $150, because I think it was only like $100 or something.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. And then as we get closer and closer, we'll move forward on this, but it's very, very exciting, and we might be able to plant trees on Main Street. It'll be beautiful. It'll be great.
Sounds great.
It's going to be really, really good. Okay, so that's the tree law. You want to, okay, we have to establish escrow accounts. Jeff, do you?
I'm not as prepared as I want to be because we just found out about this the other day, and Kevin, maybe you're familiar with it too, is anytime we take an application in, we as a town board are supposed to be establishing escrow accounts via resolution, so which we have not. And hence why we've had some in the past go into errors. So we had, Oh, there we go. No, I had, you've been in on this too, I know. We had a nice meeting the other day, of which we discussed some of the escrow accounts. And we put together a list, Kelly put together some of the ones that are in front of us now. So for resolution, what the town board does is makes the resolution, takes the money for the escrow, and then sets a minimum amount of it. Part of it is, and in discussing this with our attorney and with our engineer, it is part science and also part art. Up front, the amount can be substantial in the initial reviews. For example, Dave might put a lot of work in initial reviews, and then also some of the early secret, he may do a lot, and then we may not see several bills for a while. So what I'd like to do is make a resolution authorizing our supervisor to collect from, and we just have 3 projects now that we have that if we establish it now, it'll then be going forward. The first one would be the Wildberry Lodge. We're going to be doing 2 different actions on Wildberry Lodge. One is we're doing concurrent reviews of both a local law and also at the same time getting into SECRA and site plan. So there is a lot of activity. We did get an initial escrow of $8,000. Although that may sound like a lot, it actually is not as much as you think, because there are now a planning board, a ZBA, and a town board all drawing off of that for legal advice on the law and also for the land use. So what I'd like to do is make a resolution that Wildberry Lodge, that our supervisor requests from Wildberry Lodge an initial escrow amount of $15,000 for review of the local law, planning, and ZBA actions, and that the amount be replenished back to $15,000 when it gets down to an amount of $4,000. Anyone have any comment on
I'll
that?
second that for purposes of discussion.
So my question is, do the escrow accounts have to be segregated?
Yes.
Yes.
So each escrow...
In a non-interest bearing account under the name of the town.
All right, so that each escrow deposit has to go into a segregated account, probably at the same bank, right? So you're not keeping all this money in one account, they're all segregated.
Yes, these are all actual separate accounts. There's
So
not-
each time we establish an escrow, it requires town board approval?
Yeah, what we did was, when we were researching this whole thing, we realized in the code yesterday when we were looking at it that actually it's town board action has to be taken to establish an escrow account.
Okay.
And I believe it was at 160.
We're learning to do everything
So are we
right.
doing a retro back toward?
Well, when the Wildberry Lodge wasn't established, but there are some accounts that were established for some other projects, which Jeff is going to go on with CVS and a few others. So we are going to tonight, by resolution, establish those accounts, so we have legal.
So what's the mechanism in place now so that it gets to the town board?
What do you mean by what gets to the town board?
We have to take action.
Right.
So how are we informed?
Tomorrow, the people.
What happens at the planning board level is an applicant makes an application fee is charged. That application fee covers the initial costs to the town for the initial review of the engineer and possibly the attorney. Okay. They have a meeting. At the meeting, the planning board decides how much they feel should be put in escrow for the project, because every project is different. Okay? Going forward from that, the planning board needs to make the town board aware that they need an escrow established for a particular project in a particular amount with a certain replenishment amount.
Now, do they have to take action to refer it to us, or are you just going to have Kelly
No,
do
it's
it?
actually, when you look at the, it's actually in the law. And
It's the town board.
George actually has it in front of him, I believe.
Yes.
Can you give him the, sorry.
What I'm seeing in the law is a process for each reviewing board to establish the escrow. The town board's role is to approve payment from that escrow. And from the standpoint of the town board, I think you want to be sure that there are funds available and later discuss.
But I thought, George, I
No,
think yesterday.
it's actually also, no, the establishment
Yeah.
of the escrow account is the responsibility of the town board under the law.
Not, well, in the version I'm reading, it's the responsibility of the supervisor to cause such monies to be placed in a separate bearing account in the name of the town and keep a separate record of such monies deposited.
Correct, and the resolution, it's done via as Stacy looks it up, via resolution.
To a resolution.
Resolution approved, so it is the town board makes a resolution, as I just did, authorizing the supervisor to
create
extend.
the account.
Right,
That would be a reasonable thing.
right, that's what I was saying.
That's what's stated here.
Right, that's what's in, well, that's actually is in the law.
I think what we found yesterday was it actually said that by resolution, the town board establishes the escrow, which is,
So,
but we'll let Stacy try to find
so
it.
Stacy, we're looking to establish the proper protocol going
Yes.
forward, right?
Yes.
So, how is it going to get from the planning board to the town board, so the town board knows to take action?
Well, actually, it's a good question, and what part of it is, though, too, to help is
I don't know,
that.
she could mail it to you, she could call you.
Well, actually,
She can
Well,
walk
no,
up from her
actually-
She can walk, I don't know, I don't.
Well, the
That's
protocol-
something that, that's something that you gotta have to work out with planning.
Well, the protocol is actually good in our software in Edmunds, and we won't have an answer. We won't have an answer this week. We'll have an answer next week. Edmunds actually has a piece to it that does have escrow accounts.
Right,
we
we've purchased it.
We've actually purchased it, and we hope
Yes.
to
Yes.
have it running
Remember?
properly by next week.
No. No, not until after the annual report, because it takes a lot of time. Oh, because that person's coming in to do the tutorial with them?
Did she just ask a question and answer it all at the same time?
Yes, I
You can make these meetings go so much easier. This would be, don't bill me for that. By next week, we have a person coming in that's hopefully going to help us establish the escrow accounts, and then we will get it as a monthly report. So part of our review each month will be to look at the escrow accounts, absolutely, as we look at the warrants and say, okay, I notice this escrow account is at this level, we should be replenishing. Now, also under the law, it does allow us to change the amounts at any time, so
So, getting back to the protocol,
we are now establishing it.
right, when you,
How about if I can cut you off? Jeff and I are meeting with Michael Calamano tomorrow to talk about some things relative to the planning board and fees and things.
And this
We
will-
can establish it with him tomorrow about what's the procedure of how we'll get notified to establish the escrow.
and when
How's
you're,
that?
when you're doing that, you might want to figure out what the trigger point's going to be for the replenishment. Is it going to be from the time you incur the hours or the time you submit your bill? So.
That's one of the issues, and Kevin, that's the most valid
exactly-
point, and that's the exact point, is because you're always in errors. So for example, right now, we do have an applicant that, because the bills, and again, this is no,
Petition.
it's
Yes.
nothing to do, exactly, it's nothing to do with, they're doing their job, they're submitting their bills the following month, and so you're potentially already behind, and some levels were not set correctly. So that's what we're trying to correct.
So I would,
I'm good with that.
I question your low limit.
The fourth, would
I
you
think
like
it's
to?
low- I'd rather
you'd like
raise
that
it.
I
more?
think that's too low.
I
Okay,
think so, too.
what would you set as the low limit on the Wildberry Lodge?
It's 50%.
Yeah,
So
I'd say-
7.5, so go 8.
Go 8.
Okay, so it's, I would like to authorize, make a,
So you have to amend your resolution.
the resolution, so $15,000 from Wildberry Lodge with a
$8,000.
minimum balance of $8,000.
I'll second that friendly amendment.
Okay. Let me just say, Rosanna, did he make he made the motion and it was
Resolution.
seconded to the first one, right?
You seconded.
For discussion. So now, we just did a friendly amendment, right? Okay.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried.
For CBS Stop and Shop, I'd like to make a resolution for our supervisor to establish an escrow account for, again, the CVS Stop and Shop.
No Stop and
I
Shop.
apologize, this is an old one. For the CVS application, just so you know, Kevin, the initial one was $3,500, which again, probably was not the correct level, so to your point of a procedure. So for that one, correct amount would be, we're very early in the application process.
What do you think? Dave?
$10,000?
10?
$10,000
To be replenished to
to
5?
replenished at $5,000.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion
Aye.
so carried.
I would like to do the same for LP Builders, which is a two-lot subdivision on Route 208. Here's an example of one. It is, they put in $1,500, which has actually already been expended, so we're already in errors.
You dying?
And again, to Dave's point, some of these are going to be a little more trying. This is actually a very interesting parcel, so it is seen a lot more than you would expect to see. So for that, we've actually already expended the $15,000.
1,500?
1,500, I apologize. What would you like the initial amount on that, or what is your?
What do you suggest?
How far are they?
About
Give him the microphone.
more than half, but not, I'm going to say 60% there.
But we've expended the 15.
Are we in the rears?
Yes.
So then go to 4.
So I would like to make the resolution that the applicant be requested for $4,000 with a replenish, with not to fall below $2,000. And again, Kevin, just so you know, is once the project is complete and approved, we have 60 days in which to return the funds to them. So that is part of the local law.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried.
Was there another one that I missed?
We did CVS, we did LP, we did Wildberry, and that was it.
Oh,
right?
no, Mohonk Preserve.
Right, Mohonk Preserve.
Mohonk Preserve. The Mohonk Preserve, Route 299 site plan, subdivision, lot line revision. We did receive a escrow deposit of $8,000 on that. It has not been drawn down tremendously yet.
It will be on the 28th.
Yeah, we just got the plan. I would like to request, I would like to make it that actually that go to 10? Yeah, $10,000. So we would be requesting another $2,000 from them with a replenishment level at $5,000.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion so carried. Okay, so that's all the escrow stuff. We need to make a motion to appoint the planning board lead agency on Wildberry.
Second?
Any discussion? Is there anything that, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Should we say the lead agency on, for the zoning and for the planning?
Yes.
Okay, so if we could just amend it for Wildberry to be the lead agency for the planning and zoning amendment. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Okay, real quick, Georgia, on the cleaner, greener communities, if you guys remember, we did the streamlined solar permitting process, and we can get a reimbursed from NYSERDA for all the work that we did, and all we need to do is do a resolution authorizing the streamlined solar permitting procedure that Stacy developed. So if the board adopts a simple resolution that the building department implements the streamlined solar permitting procedures, we could get reimbursed. So,
We've already adopted the local law on the recharging station.
right, so this was the recharging stations, all the work we did, we probably can get reimbursed by NYSERDA. We just had to go through the process, do it, now we have to just do this resolution. So the resolution should state that we're authorizing Stacy to, our building
Direct
department,
Stacy to utilize the form that was reviewed and approved.
Which we are.
right, okay,
Supposedly is sufficient.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. Isn't it wonderful to be able to write a law that we might be able to actually get reimbursed for? and it's also the first law, and it's one of the top first laws, right? Okay, so that's NYSERDA. Okay, cleaner, greener. Okay, we have a couple of small things we could do real quick. This concession stand for the pool, the same people that we used last year, you guys authorized.
Same contract.
Pretty much.
So
Do
moved.
you have a menu?
Second.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, I'll request a copy of the menu just to be sure that
Okay.
there's no foods being served that should
Okay.
not be served.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
probably the same stuff that we had
It's-
last year.
Bill had discussed it with them, no fryer, the same.
Correct.
It's all going to be the same,
Okay,
Okay.
the same piece.
no problem.
Okay. Okay, so, we had a motion? Do we have a second?
We got a second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion so carried. Okay, real quick. Just, okay, so that was that. We had a water bill issue that Jean was looking into, but I think, Chris, you said that we should just have them pay the water bill, but basically do something with the sewer bill?
Just charge them the minimum sewer bill they should pay for water.
Okay, so it was a leak that was under their basement that they didn't see, and the water, they got charged excessive sewer bill and a water bill, but they have to pay the water bill, but Chris is saying that we should just prorate.
Playing twice.
Right, right. So do I have a motion to,
Actually, Chris, have you figured out the average bill yet, sewer? Can you get that?
It's just basic service charge. for water.
Is that at that property, is that normally what it is?
I don't know. Gene was digging into it, so I figured she was handling it.
and I think that's what Jean said we should do.
Okay.
But she was doing.
And that's what Jean said, right? I think she said to do that, to have them pay the water bill, because we have to pay the water bill, but then charge them
They
their,
filled their basement up, so they.
And just so you know, Dan and Kevin, we face these, and Roseanne, you know, we face these every year, every couple of years we see these, and we can't give away town assets. So
Well,
we have paid for the water as the town, so.
So we're not setting like a precedent here?
No.
No, we've already paid for the water, so if we gave them a discount on the water, it would actually be against the law.
Okay.
but a lot of times the problem ends up with the sewer and stuff. So, Jeff, you want to make the motion?
Those already made?
I don't know if I want to make a motion, because we don't know what we're going to be charging them. Can I make a motion allowing the supervisor to charge the average sewer rate to petitioner from Cherry Hill? Average? Average? Chris? Average?
Unless you want to go back and talk about it.
Do you know what their use was during the period before the leak?
The sewage?
For sewage?
Yes.
But you can charge them an average, say, for the year before the leak took place?
Yes.
So
Okay,
that
yeah.
would be
So that would be it. So,
typically what they use.
so that would be it. So to charge the average of the previous year prior to the leak of sewage. Does that make sense?
By previous quarter. Those quarters, if we want to add the whole-
Previous quarter, whatever the simplest math is. Okay, previous quarter.
Whatever they usually used in
Yeah.
some period before.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. Okay, so now the seized assets is for the server payment for the police. What I'd like to do is, because it's getting late and we got to get into some of the stuff that people are here for, why don't we talk about this at our police commission meeting? We're paying this stuff anyway. We'll talk about it at our police commission meeting, and then we can always take action another time, so we'll...
And what's the meeting?
You know, that's the first Monday, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you had a chance to
No,
look
did
at
we
it,
get
Kevin,
a, did we
about
get a
the-
discussion? Did we
you
get
look
a
at-
place for it yet?
Did you look at the equitable sharing for the,
I didn't see that.
okay, so
That's the thing he sent to us.
this is what was sent to us about the seized assets and what we can spend it, what we can't spend it on and stuff, so, you know. But Joe is working on the law that I has wanted for a long time, which is to get the evidence money, and so the evidence money to probably pay the whole thing off anyway, so, okay, so we'll do that, we'll table that until the police commission meeting, and then, because it's just too late to talk about that, okay? So, with that, I think everything else is executive session. we might be taking action when we come out of executive session, so I'd like a motion to go in executive session to discuss contract negotiation for potential open space bond acquisition, then to stay in executive session for a discussion about potential litigation relative to Park Point, and then also for the purposes of discussing a assessment grievance lawsuit, and to discuss contracts with water for the town.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion so carried.
Can I make my comment that you promised me at the end of the
Sure.
meeting before you go into
Are you guys
executive
okay?
session?
Yes,
Okay, go
yes,
ahead.
absolutely.
Come on.
Thank you.
Come on down.
Thank you. The comment I wanted to make was because of a comment that was made, which is the same type of comment that the college uses all the time when they talk about the benefits. Whatever this lady was talking about, she's talking about economic benefits. The part of that that's never asked or never followed up is economic benefit to whom? Economic benefits from these places like the college or whatever she's looking for goes to the business owners, lets them make more money. Doesn't help the taxpayers, doesn't reduce their financial burdens, and if these places go into the village, they become getting part of the subsidies. And I just wanted to make that statement on the same meeting as I heard the so-called economic benefit, because there is no economic benefit to the taxpayers by any of this stuff. It goes to the business owners.
Who employ our local residents. I mean, if you're going to go to part of the argument, Ira, continue the argument on. So your local business then employs...
And how does that help the taxpayers?
Because they then spend the money that then supports your...
Goes back to the businesses. Goes back to the businesses, and the businesses just get to keep more money. Employing... No, because,
Anyway, I'm not going to get into a discussion on democracy.
It's a straw dog. It's a straw dog argument.
Yes.
The other point that I wanted to make out, just because it happened, is that obviously what I was saying about the freeloaders seems to have an effect, because the person that attacked Kevin was part of what I consider the freeloaders, and boy, do they get upset when they're asked to pay taxes. And that's part of my, whole documentation on the so-called freeloader. I didn't know they were freeloaded too, but obviously they are. Thank you.
Thanks, Ira.
Thank you.
Before we just go into executive, let's just take care of this one housekeeping thing. We need to do a budget modification. Somehow, the historic preservation funding, which they use for contractual stuff, was put into the .1 line and not the .4 line. So I just want a motion to decrease the BBB 522-7520.1 for $6,800 and increase the BBB 522-7520.4 to $6,800.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried.
Before we go into executive
Sure.
session, can we at least invite, these are the gentlemen that are,
Yes.
so we should at least tell them
Go ahead.
what we're thinking.
Sure.
You guys want to come up, sit down?
Sure.
Do you have any plans, or what we're looking for,
Just
to
move
say,
over
I mean, you were here in and out, and you saw us talking about it, but do you guys have any plans for the property? And when we say plans, do you have like actual plans, site plans? Okay. So then we can't tell the economic, and the point is, and we use the example, and this is after speaking to our attorneys, the Niffen annexation. There was a full, already set plan. There were the sets of prints, there was everything, so everyone knew what we were getting into. What is the benefit? Both communities need to show a benefit, the town and the village. By just saying you want to annex them too, you need to show the benefit the benefit would come by knowing what we're going to get on that property. And when I say we, it would be the village and the town. Without us knowing what we're getting on the property, we can't say what the benefit is and how it maintains or improves the community character. So we know what the community character is there now. What would this project be on the community character? So then if we annex it over, and again, I'll use the Niffen as an example, it got moved over with covenants on it. So there's only certain things he could do on it once he moved it into the village. So we don't know what's going to be on this property. Without knowing what's going to be on the property, we can't say, okay, let's just move it over to the town because they want it in the town.
Sure.
Or they want it in the village.
Sure.
But you might be able to get this property rezoned consistent with maybe a joint master plan that the town and village are working on. I mean, if it makes sense, that should be an option for you guys to try to pursue that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Did
Mike.
you guys mind using the mic?
Did you guys read the code?
Yes. What we did was, because you don't have a plan, and again, we have a legal obligation, it's not a matter of, we have a legal obligation that if we agree to annexation, we have to show a public benefit. And it's a process we have to go through, or we have to say there is no public benefit, so we have no choice. We have to do something to follow the law. So because you didn't have a plan, what we did is we went and got the B3 zoning from the village.
Right.
And we looked at the B3 zoning to look at the highest use that you could possibly do on that property. So when we looked at it, some of the concerns, not that we're against the B3 or whatever, but because it's a residential neighborhood and you can do 4 stories on that particular property based on now the B3, 4 stories is totally out of context with the neighborhood right there. So that was a little bit of a concern of ours. And then, of course, what the project's going to look like to let the neighbors know so we could get feedback is a little difficult. So the 2 things that we came up with, because you guys weren't here, you kept walking in and out, but you didn't stay while we were talking, was what we decided was, A, the attorney, because we have a clock ticking. And so if right now, we have to take action at our next meeting in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we have to take action. Based on all the information we have right now, we would probably be forced to have to say no because we can't prove a public benefit at this point. So we're going to look into seeing if we can get more time with your consent, that if we're allowed legally to ask you to give more time for us to try to figure out and how to work this out and see where we go from here. So that's our first question. If we can't get more time, and I don't know if you're willing to give us more time, if you're not willing to give us more time, we'd probably have to say no at this point. If you're going to be willing to give us time and we could legally do that, then we could try to work with you to figure out what's going on. Some of the possibilities is possibly for us to do it where we ask for certain, agreements with you that maybe you only do 2.5 stories or this or that in order for us to be able to show a benefit to the community. So that's what we're all trying to work out. So where we left it was George was going to check on the timeline, and then depending on that, we were either going to have a special meeting, ask you to come to talk to us more, or we would wait if we have the time, if we get more time, then have you come to our next board meeting so we can talk more with you about where do we go and how do we potentially make this work for you, but not have an adverse impact on the town. So that's pretty much what we discussed while you guys were gone.
Okay.
But for a lot longer. Is that pretty much in a nutshell?
Do we have a general understanding that this is going to be, a residential development that will be required to have stores like retail only on 32? I mean, there's a very specific guideline. This code is written specifically to be in adherence with certain guidelines. There's no.
Yes, I think they read it. I think they have a problem with the height limit is what their issue is.
Or we don't know. Maybe we don't. We like the idea of this corridor being density built. We all like that idea.
Right.
But we don't know what you want to build. If you want to build retail and then professional offices above it and then 2 stories of residential above it, you also have to consider community character. So now
that conforms to the front piece.
Absolutely. So, but now you have a 4-story structure as an entrance to a residential neighborhood. The residents have a right to speak on the character of the neighborhood because part of annexation, along with us discovering if it's public good, also does state that it needs to match the character of the community.
Absolutely.
So
Could we assume that we would want to max out the...
Well, no, we want to see your plans. We can't tell you how to develop it. We want to see what you guys want to do with it.
Can you guys, as a board, safely assume that the code is
It's a pretty narrow code, there's not too much to it, so why don't you assume the max, and if you accept that, you accept, and if you don't, you don't, rather than going through gyrations of what we might do and what might not do.
Okay, then if you wanted the consensus of the board, we wouldn't approve it then.
Okay, that's
Then,
okay.
yeah. No, then we wouldn't.
That's fine.
Then we wouldn't approve it.
That's fine.
So again, the better way to do it is to.
No, I'd rather know that answer
Right,
than go
and
the
then
other
come with a
route.
plan. And again, I'll just keep going back, because I was here for the Nippon annexation, and it came with a completed plan. So we were able to sit with our village, and, because now we need to get together as the town and the village, and then say, they see a benefit, we see a benefit, and we want density. We do agree, this is a
Well, the
great
town,
corridor density.
I'm sorry, the village that's already zoned.
Right, yes, it is.
So that zone's there. If
Yes.
you wanted to increase that zonage into another half acre behind it to increase a better project.
Right.
If you guys were okay with that and,
Right.
agreed that that would be beneficial,
Yeah,
then that would be great. If not, I understand.
yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much further we have to go. If you guys could assume the code of what it is and say, we would allow this code and let someone build what this code allows for into your part, and that would conform and be beneficial to the town, then great.
Right.
If not, that's okay too.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And so, I mean, if you're saying no, then I don't want to pin you down. I mean, I'd like to approve more time to go through this.
Well, okay, yeah, that's what we want to do.
Well,
Yeah, that's what we want to do,
We're hoping that we can legally have more time.
Yeah, that's what we want,
Then
yeah.
our other
Yeah, we want.
choices would be,
Tell us, yeah.
to sort of, if, we feel that, we weren't looking at the total build-out, and that's the problem, is in some ways, is the total build-out problematic for the community character, on the height, the height and all that. Could we then potentially sort of say, well, we'll do it, but this is a restriction we have to have in order for us to feel comfortable doing it for the neighbors? That's
Sure.
also a possibility. And then the other possibility is not to do the annexation, but for us to do the rezoning for the town to accommodate the ability for you to do more of what you're looking to do, which we're not necessarily against,
Sure.
but it's more within the community character. So that
But
was
the
pretty
downside
much-
of that is that would take a
Yeah.
lot more time.
Yeah, I'm
to
not-
do.
I'm not
That
sure I
would be-
understand that
would
last
be-
part.
That, in other words, one of the things that Councilman Barry suggested was that if the annexation does, if we're concerned about the annexation allowing you to build to maximum build out, which is 4 stories, and we think that's a problem, and the neighbors think it's a problem, we could always rezone those properties to allow you to have more business and density without going into the things that concern us. So we can always rezone it, it's just a longer process than letting you do the annexation and then just go
Other
with
words,
the
the
build.
annexation
So-
process
but
is
then-
much quicker than having us rewrite zoning, because we're not going to just zone it that,
we
we're going to
spent,
extend it.
10 years rezoning the North
Right.
Chestnut Gateway District.
Yeah,
Exactly.
or the front
Great point.
piece of that
10
property,
years.
per se.
Yeah.
You're exact-
But
great
we
point.
haven't.
10 years. You don't want to spend 10 years.
Well, that's not their problem.
No, I know, but we're the town board. If it was-
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's not
If it was us, we would have done it
But
quicker.
we've been here since 1678, so 10 years compared to
But the
1678
concept-
is not bad.
The concept of-
I just threw in a history reference for Dan. You're welcome.
Good, sorry.
But thank you.
Yeah,
We appreciate the ability to
Yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of
no.
work and look through this.
Yeah. So
And
we'll
George
see.
is going to do some work for us
Yeah,
to see,
that's
and
awesome.
again, it would probably be with
Yeah.
your consent, and then we can get the public hearings, we can just keep going. And again, it would be much quicker and more efficient than us changing the law, because that will take a lot more study and thought on our part.
Yeah.
'Cause we wouldn't want to spot zone it. It would be extending a B2 district.
Yeah, yeah.
Or in our
yeah,
case, we wouldn't
yeah.
call it B2, we would call it,
And if,
what's our version of B2?
B15.
It's not B2, it wouldn't be B,
Don't know that you have something different.
I don't know if we do or not either.
Call it the B5 accommodation.
There you go.
if from a legal standpoint, we were allowed to allocate more time, so we're not so distressed and we have to make
Well,
a
that's what we're
decision very
trying,
quickly.
we're
Yeah.
hoping that we
If
can. Right now, we're on a clock
If we can,
ticking.
if we can get to that where we can do
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
what exactly would you want to see? Do you want to see a full site plan and full,
Well, that would probably help us because
Yeah.
we're making a decision, we
Yeah.
have something definitive that we could, talk to.
yeah, so we're almost getting into planning board stuff
Uh-huh.
at this point.
Or at least just conceptual, so the neighbors could understand what we're agreeing to do. so they don't come in and bitch at us, come in and complain to us afterwards that, what did you do?
Yeah, but then you
Well,
would,
let me
then you would be pinning us down to a concept, then what if we went and did something different?
That's the exact point. So
Yeah.
that's why we don't.
So this would then go to planning board level, so what you're doing.
Well, no,
No,
not at
no,
all.
no,
No,
it's
no,
just-
no.
it's
You put
just,
covenants on it. So, for example, if you came here with a plan that it's 4 stories all the way on South Chestnut and then going up Sunset, absolutely everyone in the community dislikes it. Everyone on this board dislikes it. Our community says no. It's not going to go anywhere. If you come and say it's going to be 2 stories, 2.5 stories on the front, maybe a story, 2 stories in the back, we could put we would then transfer the land to the village with a covenant that it will not exceed 2.5 stories in the front. I'm just making these numbers
Right.
up. 2 stories in the back, that would be your covenant. Now, could you then change the plan from what you left here with? Absolutely. But you now cannot exceed these levels.
For sure.
These are the levels, and that would be it. So no, we're not sitting here pinning you down and saying, you've given us a site plan, you've given us elevations, this is what you have to build.
Right.
We would not do that because that's with the planning board of the village. We're not the village planning board.
But it would be governed at the,
Conceptually, and we can transfer with covenants, and
Right,
it's totally
right.
acceptable.
Okay,
Yeah.
that explains
Yeah.
what you're looking to
So
get at.
conceptually, we just wanna know-
So we're looking to get at conceptual understanding, transfer with covenants. That's kind of what we're
And
going
if
for.
you had some plats that had some type of elevations on it, what you're looking for, that could be shared, and then we can get public input on it, absolutely. But,
Okay.
and again, so, don't leave here thinking that we're against.
No, I'm
against
not.
having.
I'm not. You guys have been very- been
Against
great.
having some type of, because, just go 1 block that way, what do you see? Those are 3-story. Just go to your, head north, right
Oh,
next
yeah.
door to us.
Oh, yeah.
You have 3-story buildings. So we're already.
The property in front right now is zoned for 4 stories.
So we're already in an area where there is density right next to us. So
4
it's not-
stories.
So we're not saying this, we don't want density, but we need to know what we're transferring over and what
Yeah.
that neighborhood wants. That's all we're looking for.
Well, also, we're legally obligated to do that.
And we're legally obligated to do it.
Small little caveat.
This is under the advice of attorneys, too. Sure.
Well, thank you for your time.
Okay,
I'll let you
thanks.
get to your.
Okay, well, we just have to- this is going to fall apart if we don't.
Sorry
go
for
now.
ducking in and out of you guys.
No,
Yeah,
don't get
no.
Marty up here.
I didn't realize that you realized we were talking about it. 'cause
No, I didn't.
Because we were talking about it and you came in and I turned and said, well, you might be able to answer us, and then you just walked out again. That's okay. Thank you. I'm glad you came back
Yes,
in.
Chris, we're done.
Okay, well, we're not done.
No?
No, when we have to
Chris,
take
you got a question?
No, it isn't.
Okay.
The issue I had.
Yes, we will be discussing that in.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so we're
Yeah.
going into, so,
Executive session, yes.
okay.
Actually, we might want to, yes.
We got to
Yeah,
get
we
Marty.
got Marty in there.
Marty's gonna be,
Yes, Chris,
Marty's
yes.
gonna, he's been sitting here really patiently for a long time.
We don't have that, yes. Yes, Chris, we will.
Okay, so we're going in with Marty with, and then we're going to come out, and, well, Dave, you should come in with us with Marty, because you're the
Are
one.
we going to have a decision from Marty? Like, we want Cameron
We
to
might
stay
have
here?
to, we might make a decision with Marty, Mike did make a decision with George, we might make a decision with Chris, so
There will be some decisions made, yes.
there might be possible decisions, so,
Yes, let's go,
okay,
Marty.
so come on.
Yeah, let's go.
Come on, Dave.
There's no reason you have to. Or, and if you get in trouble for it, tell us that you can go.
Most likely quite well. You gotta hang around.
No, I'm not.
Oh, I thought you had to because they were gonna make decisions.
No, I can always
Just take it,
back to
oh,
the video.
okay.
Yeah. This could take a while.
Yeah, I was about to say, you got, with everything that's going on here, it's gonna be an hour.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be longer than an hour.
Yeah. What's wrong with this thing? This thing doesn't work anymore.
Batteries low?
Yeah. Every time this thing was dropped. This one's mine, but this one not.
We got a speaker system from the last event we had.
Yeah, my old one.
Yeah.
still have that?
It's in my garage.
Oh, all right, let me see what everybody needs.
There's one at the community center.
Where's one?
Yeah, small.
The person is sitting, they only have a 2-member group, and if the other member can't make it, she will.
So that's what we're aiming for. What's this area? How did it go that you guys read? What did you jump down?
Maybe stiff sitting for too long. It's stiff sitting for too long.
Nope.
Like I said, I'm going to this Radio Shack, the guy 10 years old.
Thank you for your input, I appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
Probably the guy
Thank you so much.
We'll
see you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate your
Thanks a lot,
time.
Jeff.
You get it, right?
This thing,
We're good.
need to know what to apply for.
And he'll get
back to us probably early next week.
Great.
All right. Memorial Day weekend. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
See you, Jeff.
Thank you. My son hates to be here all night.
Maybe you go to bed, I'll be doing hydrant
We
flushing.
always used to get my
4 o'clock in the
father to
morning.
do it when we were younger. Dad, put your hands like this.
Test. Works now. Yeah, it did. Test, test. Just 1, 2.
Stewart's is gonna close up in 5 minutes, and we should get a whole bunch of signatures. You don't have any diners? Call it in.
You still got your table mics, I can pack these up, right? Works for me.
Actually, you probably could pack those up and just leave that one big one.
I was gonna leave it. He's still got his on the table.
Do you want to get discussing in the executive session? Because I don't think they said.
Yeah, they did. They went,
I didn't hear it.
is it in this? It's not on the agenda, is it?
No.
Something about Park Point. Something about.
They are discussing Park Point. That
Yeah,
was
the
what-
Park Point, something about, some lawsuit from the planning board. Something, I'm not sure the
Assessment
planning board,
lawsuit.
something like that.
No, that I heard, that I
There was like
heard.
2 other things.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if they had moved Park Point to executive session because it's on the regular agenda. So if it's something for discussion in executive session, it shouldn't be on the regular agenda. It should just be we're going into executive session to discuss A, B, and C.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if I hadn't gotten stuck at the back of the list, I would have been gone a long time ago.
Me too. I thought I had to go into executive session. That's the reason I even showed up tonight.
It always drives me crazy when I was talking to Jeff. And the only thing the goddamn, colleges teach is Keynesian economics.
Keynesian?
Keynesian, yeah. Keynesian, however you want to pronounce it. It hasn't worked for 200 years, but they won't teach anything
Anything
else.
else?
once said is that the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And it's amazing how they won't teach anything with the Keynesian economics. So this guy is totally wrong, at least like this.
What? I mean, well, I don't know much about it. I don't know much about it. Actually, I have to be honest with you, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, no, I'm learning about Wall Street economics, which makes to me a hell of a lot more sense.
What kind of economics?
Wall Street.
Austrian? Huh.
Sounds cool. Basically says your economy is based upon actual things, not
Predicted, projected.
not credit, not, in other words, if you want to spend $1 million, you have to have $1 million in something of value, of actual sustainable value, like gold. Which is why Nixon took us over to gold
Standard, right, yep.
Because then they were restricted.
That was voodoo economics or something, wasn't it back then? Wasn't that what they called it when they took them out of...
Voodoo economics, the interesting thing is that that's exactly Keynesian economics.
Is it?
When you think about it, because that's the thought. Under Austrian economics, it's like you have to have something solid, tangible, to back up your debt or your money. So like I said, either gold or, you talk like under Keynesian, for example, they talk about that there's no inflation. But there's a tremendous amount of inflation. It's just that it's hidden in your assets, such as your home. Think about the rising cost of a home, of a car, of a TV. The inflation is not outside, it's actually